Is it difficult competing at such an elderly age?
Hey, I just won $75,000. It was one of my greatest moments ever.
I've got a question for Fatch, and that is, how have you and Pamstu stuck together for so long, and is it hard playing with that same person for such a long period of time?
I'd say the biggest upside is just, we understand how we play like really perfectly. Don't really have to think what the other is gonna do. So my question to Smite would be, what is your biggest strength to counting POIs and stuff and made you do so good in Invitational?
I practice a lot on my drops and just all the loot spots at my POI that I'm landing.
So I got a question for NPen. When is he gonna make a name for himself, and when is he gonna put the effort to become a best Fortnite player?
I think that I'll be able to make a name for myself this year. This is the hardest I've ever worked in becoming better as a player overall and bettering my lifestyle. My question for Kanata is, do you think your competitive career would have differed if you'd never loaded up with Tfue in that final week of trios and won the whole qualifier?
100%. In my opinion, Tfue definitely started my career. With Tfue, I also got a lot of recognition, boosting my career and giving me that confidence I probably needed. My question for Larson would be, during FNCS Invitational, when you were getting contested by Muzz and Looter, were you prepared?
Yeah, we knew Muzz and Looter were going to be contesting us during Invitational. Them contesting us did not make me nervous, because it's just part of the game. So it's just it's going to happen eventually,
My question would probably be, what was it like winning solo All-Star, and how did your family react?
I was just going crazy in my mind, and I just couldn't believe it that I won a championship. Then when I go downstairs to tell my dad that's what happened, almost crying and saying like, hey, I just won $75,000. It was one of my greatest moments ever. Hey Nanny, how did you feel about winning the first reboot round of the last FNCS?
Winning the first reboot round in last FNCS was an absolutely amazing feeling. I'm sure a lot of people remember my celebration. It was a hype moment for sure. Cease? Is it difficult competing at such an elderly age?
You think you're funny, Nani? You are not funny in the slightest. Look, it's very easy competing at this elderly age. Let me tell you that. I've been paying taxes for the last 6 years. I know what's good. When it comes to winning these big prize pools, I'm all for it. I already know what's at line, and I don't gotta worry.
Tonight is the night, as 50 teams from NA East battle it out for the final time this season to compete for the Axe of Champions, the FNCS title, and a direct qualification spot at the FNCS Global Championships. Currently sitting in first is Acorn and Cold, and these guys want it more than ever. Potentially their first FNCS duo title is on the line for both of them, and that is not an opportunity they will let slide. However, the real question is if Kanata and Agers will allow this. This is their best shot in a long time, and they are hungry for the Axe of Champions. Kanata has been to every FNCS finals in Fortnite history, so let's see if he can be crowned champion of the last NA East FNCS ever. Trashy and Pump also put up a phenomenal performance day one, while being contested off spawn even. These guys have proven themselves worthy of the Axe of Champions yesterday and want to solidify that statement tonight. Buckle up and find your seat on the battle bus, as we are about to witness some of the most intense Fortnite NA East has ever offered us. This is not a drill, this is the last ever NA East FNCS Grand Finals.
What is going on, Fortnite fam? Welcome back to the FNCS. We just watched EU go absolutely crazy. And now here we are in NA East to bring it all home. 6 games, and by the end, we will know the first champions from NA. And as Kelly eloquently put it, the last NA East champions. It is going to be a wild ride here over the course of these next 6 games. But of course, why don't we bring out our friends? They're going to help us break down all of that and so much more. It is none other than the best Taco and Kelly Link. Boom. Crushed it. Here we are. I can't believe it. So obviously we just got done watching EU. It was wild. Came down to a single point difference. If you did not watch EU, go back, find the VODs, wherever you got to do, go watch that. Are you guys feeling the same? I feel like NA could bring something similar.
I think it's a bit serendipitous because we saw in Chapter 3, Season 3, the last NA East FNCS online tournament, that it was Booga and Peterbot that lost by a single point as well. So maybe we're going to be seeing a repeat here today.
Look, all I can say, Kelly, is that from what we got out of yesterday, we saw so many of these newer duos climbing their way into the top 5. And not only that, but we were also starting to see a little bit of that resurgence from some of the more experienced teams that you kind of would expect to be in that top 5. But now here today, we get to figure out who's going to Global Championship and who's winning Major 1.
Absolutely wild. There is so much we have to talk about, so much to catch all of you up on. So why don't we kick things off with some of the off-spawn fights. My, oh my, did they go ways in which we didn't quite predict? Let's start things off. Miro versus Moo. How did this go yesterday?
Well, what we like to talk about is adaptation. A lot of these teams yesterday had to adapt not just to their own drop spots, but to other teams encroaching on their top spots. And that's exactly what we saw here from Miro versus Moo. Miro on the west side there having a huge swath of the map to themselves and a lot of oathbound chests. But Moo, who originally was going to be landing Slap and Go, decided, you know what, another team's going to be landing here. I don't want to deal with Duke's and Iamzo's team, so we're actually going to be dropping here as well.
I don't blame
Yeah, as far as Moo and Braids are concerned, I think that also the Elite Cup had a little bit of influence there, considering that Iamzo and Rise were definitely getting the better end of that exchange. But it was really interesting to see the adaptation, like you were talking about, Kelly, from Miro and Ed, because they knew being at King's Launch, they had to limit their loot path. They didn't have as much terrain that they could actually freely cover, freely look for loot and resources. And we actually saw them choosing to try and disengage more often than not, and that adjusted loot path had a big part in it.
Yeah, in game number 1, it was Miro that was able to take out Moo's team. And then in game number 2, it was Moo that was able to take out Miro immediately. And then you can see in game number 3, Miro almost dropping on that spot, but then deciding in the last second to go up north a little bit and to get some loot to save themselves some off-spawn contention.
How do we see this going today? Can we see more of the same? Could we see even more adaptations come out?
I would definitely expect for Miro and Ed, as far as wanting to find consistency in their placements, they're probably going to have to keep prioritizing just keeping that limited loot path, that adjustment in their loot path, because they don't want to take a 50-50 contestation when they're already in 16th place. They know that Moo and Braids are in 36 as well, so it's not really worth the battle there in my mind. I think as far as Miro and Ed are concerned too, they have so much experience as a team that as far as King's Launch is concerned, they can get enough and get out.
Yeah, for sure. Why don't we continue the talk of off-spawn fights and how they went. Trashy going up against Aaron. Now, this one felt a little more clear-cut, but in day 2, we could look to see a big change-up. So talk me through this one.
Yeah, clear cut is definitely the memo here that was established because Trashy and Pump were absolutely cooking Aaron and Naves off spawn. 4 matches in a row, we just see Aaron and Naves be complete non-factors because Woodsy Ward has been the total control of Trashy and Pump, and they made sure to keep that message established. But it was cool to see a switch up for Aaron and Naves because they did find a little bit more success in Game 5.
And you can see a lot of these teams try and take that 50-50 on the off spot, but Trashy and Pump, time and time again, literally before they could even grab a weapon, were able to take down Aaron's team right there. And you can see just an immediate elimination, and this was different games. We're not watching a replay right there. And what Aaron's team did really well is that they changed their drop spot onto another team on the southwest side of the map, and then they started winning those engagements as well. So again, it's not just one team that is changing and adapting to these drop spot fights. It's multiple teams that are having to kind of a cascading effect that we're seeing here.
Yeah, I mean, similar question, I guess. Do we see them continue this trend? Do we think maybe in day 2 they say, okay, Trashy, we just maybe want one game to run it back just to see?
No shot. No. When it is that pre-established, that drop spot, you have zero business being at when you are losing it back to back to back to back. It is time to reassess. And I think that Aaron and Naves, like I just mentioned in Game 5, we saw them actually make it into the top 15 of placements for Games 5 and 6. And it's because of that adjustment, moving to the south side of the map over in Rowdy Acres and contesting Suscript and Haji like you're mentioning, Kelly.
And in conjunction to that, Trashy and Pump were able to get a good amount of eliminations games 1 through 4, but then in games 5, when we did see Aaron's team change drop spots, they actually ended up with 0 eliminations. So Trashy and Pump actually might have bit off more than they could chew.
Okay, I like this conversation. And you know what? Why don't we hear from the man himself? Trashy has put on quite a show after day number 1, currently sitting in 3rd place. And you know what? Why not tap into the player themselves? Trashy, welcome to the broadcast. How you doing, my man?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Oh, man, we're doing fantastic. Day 2 grand finals. Got to ask you, how are you feeling?
I'm confident. I'm really confident. I think my duo is gonna help me win this.
Yeah. Quick question for you as far as like yesterday as compared to today. Do you feel like there's any pressure differences coming into today? Or if not, what do you guys do to prepare coming into today?
To prepare, I think overthinking is a really big issue for a lot of people. So we just try to stay calm.
Yeah, I mean, we had a chance to talk to you even in week 3. And so here, day 2, grand finals, you're in 3rd place as is. What do you think you need to do specifically to find yourself in that 1st place spot instead?
Definitely going to focus a lot on Surge and just getting a lot of that, like moving around off spawn a lot.
Well, then I think that's a great segue to Surge. Now you guys don't have anyone contesting you on your drop spot. Is that any concern at all? And obviously you guys had some favorable zone polls yesterday. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's definitely gonna be tough if we don't pull zone, but I'm pretty confident.
Yeah, okay. Is there any strategies you guys are busting out here in day number 2? A lot of players that we've talked to have always said, hey, look, we got secret strats here and there. Do you guys have any of that coming into today?
I'm not gonna leak. You're gonna have to see.
I can't expect them to leak that though. It's day 2 of Grand Z.
That's fine. You know what? I respect it. For all the fans out there, Trashy, where can they find you?
TrashyFN_ on pretty much all socials.
You love to see it. Well, hey man, best of luck in today's competition, and thank you so much for your time. Trashy, just an amazing player, and we'll be seeing him compete. Remember, he's currently sitting in that 3rd place spot. So we'll have to see kind of what you're saying, Taco. Maybe they find themselves in the number 1 spot. That's what they're wanting to do, especially the last NA East Grand Finals.
And also that spot into the Global Championships.
Yeah, oh my gosh. So much to discuss. Now, we want to bring in 2 more people to talk more about this because we want to catch you guys up on everything that happened yesterday. It's your casters, Life with Panda and Jacob PR.
Oh.
As you can see, we've been practicing crowning champions today in preparation for NA East to commence.
And this is a big one. This is more than just a crown for one player, one team. This is the last NA East championship. There's so much on the line. I'm at the edge of my seat waiting for it.
So insane. So let's set the stage here. Let's start with the standings. All right, that is kind of the best way to indicate maybe you missed out on the action yesterday. We've got you covered. The standings will tell us a very interesting story. Right now, Acorn Cold, they came in after those first 6 games. They're looking strong. Now, they did have a little bit of like a blunder, I want to say. They had a game where they had like an 80-point lead, and then suddenly that just kind of fell apart.
Yeah, it went from a 15 eliminations burner to just absolutely nada, just about only picking up an additional 2 elims in that game 6. And while it wasn't necessarily the placement that they were hoping for that final match, at the end of the day, for day 1, they had already had so much of a buffer zone that it still didn't cut their lead by too much.
I mean, you guys were talking about momentum yesterday, and I don't think that slowed their momentum down whatsoever. I mean, ever since we saw them from week 2, where they got top 5, week 3, where they were in 4th, and then 2 Elite Cup top performances into 1st place right here. I mean, he might as well change his name to Hot because he is on fire right now.
Listen, I called it early this season. I said Acorn and Cold, this was going to be the team to watch out for. And despite a slower game 6, because that's what I'm going to call it, it's just a slower game 6, they're still going to come out hot here off the heels of an incredible day 1.
Yeah, I just hope that they keep things going, because all it takes is one misstep, one blunder in the final game, and who's hot on their heels? Kanata and Agers, 14 for 14 FNCS qualifications to get that far. He just needs that one thing left, and that's that championship at the end of the day.
And credit where credit is due, right? For Agers and Kanata, when they identified, wait, these guys, they've gone down. Now is our time to strike. They did close that gap, right? You would look at an 80-point difference and go, what are we supposed to do? For them, they said no problem.
It's more so the fact that Agers and Kanata, they know that they have so many duos surrounding them. They're in faulty splits, and yet time and time again, who do we see make it into those final zones? It's Agers and Kanata.
Yep.
Even when the zone isn't necessarily pulling in their favor, they're just doing such a great job of tracking their loot and resources throughout that they're not having too much difficulty on those rotations.
I think it's actually an interesting juxtaposition between Acorn and Cold and Agers and Kanata, because one team had these crazy pop-off games, whereas Agers and Kanata, every single game was able to make it into the end game. Every single game was able to grab a handful of eliminations instead of having that pop-off game.
Yeah, look, I couldn't agree more. Kanata and Agers are a lethal duo, and Acorn and Cold are going to have to be very, very careful in the way they take this, because if somebody's going to dethrone them, it's going to be Kanata. This man is so consistent. Top 10 performances almost every single event he plays in shows you how good he really is.
I just want to piggyback on what Kelly was saying, though. She's talking about how well they've been playing as a team, and typically we're talking about Kanata and solo clutches, so it's great to see that they still have that trick in their back pocket if one of them goes down early.
Of course, and one more duo that we want to talk about, and this is the caster curse that came from Panda himself.
Wow.
It's none other than Booga and Peterbot. But let's take a look at, they're currently in that 13th place. Now, we do kind of talk about this sometimes, duos being a second or day 2 duo, right? What can we expect from this duo coming into today?
As far as Peterbot and Boo are concerned, it's mostly just about making sure that they actually get to play out the match as a duo.
Yep.
And I believe only 2 realistically out of those 6 matches. There was a 3rd, but they didn't really make it into that late game position that they were hoping for. But it's still, they were constantly put into that solo clutch position. And while we did see one particular instance from Boogo where he managed to find a 5th place finish, it's a lot of pressure being applied to one individual member out of this pairing. And we know just how strong they can be as a team. So I want to see them actually make it there together.
It's hard to not imagine Booga, who in the last 6 online FNCSs has placed at the lowest 3rd.
Yep.
But he is in 13th place, a bit of an unlucky number.
All I'm going to say is I did mention, I know we talked about it, Booga, Peterbot. I didn't think they were going to have the solid day 1. It was a bit of a caster curse. I'll take that. But when you think about Booga, there's one thing you think about, and that is, the GOAT.
Jacob, I don't even know that. What do we say?
I can't. All I know is that what they did through the 2 weeks of qualifiers, it was just unsustainable. But here, 13th place, day 2, they have to mimic their play style. Otherwise, they're going to finish outside of the top 10.
Man, so many things all converging to a single point right here. And day 2 of grand finals, the last NAE's grand finals. That is absolutely insane. But guess what? Games are ready to go. I know. I am ready. I know you at home are all ready as well. So let's get this popping. This is game number 7.
Four weeks and day 1 has gone by to get to this point. And there's so much on the line. We keep talking about it. Prize money, acts of champions, spot in the FNCS Global Championship. And luckily for everybody at home, you don't have to wait long. Game number 7 starts right now.
Look, the second half of this competition is now underway, and here we go. Of course, the Battle of Slappy Shores is going to be probably the biggest battle that we talk about. Despite them not actually fighting off spawn, these are 2 of the top teams that everyone is expecting to do well. So, Booga Peterbot, let's watch how they land.
Yeah, already you could see the shots coming in from South Slappy. That's Acorn and Cold getting their surge out of the gate. That's something for Acorn and Cold that is so momentous leading into the next portion of the game. But a fight that we saw go down game after game. Chaos Gaming and Time 1X, and he gets the loot stolen right beneath his fingers. And a pickaxe from Okus to finish the job, leaving Time 1X and a 1v2. This is going to be hard for him and a mountain for him to climb if he wants to come out on top. And you see, he's even going for the piece control. But a legendary heavy, this is going to be hard for him to survive.
Yeah, this is going to be a tough fight here. Okus, though, such a good shot. If you give him just one moment of your time, he's going to connect. That is just what he does, and that's what he's trying to do here. Big shot comes through, but it's not going to be enough. Okus ends up going down, but Noxy finishing it up.
That was brilliant between the two, and that was probably the biggest 50-50 that I've seen in quite a while, going into the same trailer for the same box, but from one battle to the next, something that gives that feeling of deja vu. Eoxy and Swirl going up against Chimp and Spade, and you even see in the feed, Blaken taking down users and Polarized, starting the day off hot. So Eoxy and Swirl trying to do that same exact thing, mimic what they were able to do yesterday.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest, this was a pretty even battle here in these games throughout the first 6, so we'll see if these 2 teams have kind of sat back and realized what worked, what didn't, and they start adjusting that game plan, and clearly it's working out here first for Aoxy and Swirl. They picking up Chimp quite early, and Chimp, in my opinion, is the stronger fighter of the 2, so taking him out is just a matter of time before you get his duo.
Yeah, it just seems like on the side of Chimp and Spade, the timing isn't there, but on the other side of that, Aoxy and Swirl, they must have had a watch on or something because they were on point, and this is a surprise to see. Breakwater Bay, Caskers and Clarity already playing that solo game with Caskers going down early, but it had to have been some off-spawn exchange because you see an elimination on the back of Clarity. Cam lost his teammate as well, and you can see Ed and Miro trying to be the ones to play janitor and clean it all up.
Miro just sneaking up behind Cam. He doesn't realize it either. This could be huge. If Miro's able to catch Cam off guard in this situation, this fight is not going to go for a long period of time.
It'll be over before it starts, but you could say that Miro, without a shotgun of any variation, you can see that he's just quick to rotate, quick to move. Cam hearing somebody sneak up on the side, that's going to be Ed, but Miro over the top. Shots to be fired. That could be a big win, because not only do you get 4 more points, you start off with a shockwave hammer, but Cam knows how valuable it is, whether you have your teammate or not, to try to hold on to that shockwave hammer as long as possible.
Yeah, and they're going to go ahead and exchange some shots there in the distance. It's actually Trashy. They're not too far out, going to look for those surge shots. You know, anytime you hear shots in the direction of another team, you're going to start putting them running shoes on and get moving, because you know how important surge is for these players. And these players are at the top of their game and understanding what they need to do to find some of those tags. And one of those examples, obviously, look in the distance. Look to where you know there is some action going on and get involved in any way that you can.
And already you can kind of see in the mini-map where the zone is beginning to pull. It is going to be on the eastern side, but quite center. Can still pull north or south, and that's why you see Cold trying to fire back at Peterbot and Booga. They know they're trying to collect the surge because it is in their zone.
much like Aviv and users, they've been doing this all weekend long, building a tower in the clouds. They even tend to separate to make sure they have additional angles and try to build up on that surge. In a lobby this stacked, especially day 2 of the finals, it's going to be one of the hardest things that you can gather, and that's going to be that storm surge.
Absolutely right. But for a team like Kanata and Agers, they haven't really struggled in search for surge. They honestly just continue to surprise me here. And that's why we see them placing so high. Honestly, the best average placement of day 1 here.
Yeah, it just goes to show that even though Acorn and Cold are sitting in first, you got a team hot on the heels, and it's all without an actual VR. So that's going to be a huge boost of confidence going into this next couple of games. As Yamzo and Rise trying to do the same thing. I think everybody in the community can kind of agree they're a little bit lower on the leaderboards that they would, any of us would hope, but they're still in contention to take the title at the end of the day to qualify for the FNCS Global Championship. They just need to have a phenomenal finish on the day, but a team that had a phenomenal start. Revised and reciprocal. I talked about them taking high ground game after game, moment after moment. It actually worked out for them yesterday, and I am so excited to see this team perform.
Honestly, the dark horses of this competition. They've continually surprised both you and I, Jacob, watching their games go out throughout the first 6. They have been so consistent. So for them, they just need to remain consistent and wait for that opportunity to strike so they can claim that top spot on the leaderboard.
Walker and Vert trying to do the same thing. A team that I think everybody knows can have pop-off performance after pop-off performance. It's about finding your stride, finding that little bit of momentum and trying to stretch it from game 7 to game 12 with as much consistency in between. You can already see with the red eye, you can see his epic, heavy. Shockwave hammer is going to be the biggest thing in his inventory, but a ton of heals as well. The only thing right now that could be even better is depending on the augments that he pulls. I think right now they're stacked up to have a phenomenal game as well.
You know, that's one thing we didn't really talk as much about there in day number 1 is the augments and the impact that the augments have had here in Chapter 4. Remember, this is a brand new system here to the game in this chapter, and we're seeing it unfold in high-level competition for the first time here in the grand finals. Now, obviously, we've watched quite a few of them throughout the weeks, but in these weeks leading up to this moment, several new augments were added, but it doesn't matter about augments when Trashy and Pump are in your box. You know whether they have augments or not, they're going to be hunting for that Elin.
Couple of shockwave attempts trying to go straight up. Going to be a little unsuccessful on that, but Pump is there on the other side. Welcoming in. Come into my box. Try to escape. I'll take you out anyway. And you can see the seriousness on Trashy's face. And I love that. He's never getting content throughout the game. It doesn't matter if he gets 100 points in a victory royale on one game or maybe even winning the entire thing. You're going to see him not celebrate until the job is done. And that's something that you can kind of lay your hat on. Not getting content is something I think everybody needs to go through on the day. And talk about not getting content. Talked about 14 for 14. Kanata and Agers, and Vivid has a huge masterclass on how they're going to succeed in this game.
Our second place team right now, and honestly, it's just because they're so good at maneuvering throughout their drop spot faulty splits in combination with the Splash Medic augment. They have so many splashes. Kanata here dedicating 3 slots, and then Agers himself 2, 40 points behind coming into this game. Will they be able to use this one to catch up to Acorn and Cold?
Thank you so much for vividly breaking that down for us. But we keep moving, especially for Kanata and Agers. Job's not done. Second place is not enough. Ooh. And Kanata looking for his first major win ever. And he's going to be challenging Mega there. You see him get that knock. Him and his teammate going to go ahead and press the fight. Definitely the right call here because you know that refresh and those additional points from the elimination are going to be so crucial. And that's why you see them jump in. It is a 2v1 as of now. Justice on the back foot, trying to hold Mega down. But when you have the power, the absolute carnage and aggression from Kanata and Agers, there is nowhere you can hide.
I feel bad for Justice there in that moment. Because as soon as everybody in the lobby saw Kanata and Agers go for the actual elimination, that tower is massive. Everybody around is going to be able to see it. And you saw the third-party attempts go in, which led Justice to try to disengage. You can already see in your mini-map from one fight to the next, Justice has his work cut out for him if he's going to try to come out on top. And man, did I think this was going to be a full Eastern pull. Was I wrong? It's going to go south from here.
Can I just say, we're seeing it yet again. How many chug splashes are there in Kanata's inventory?
let's say there was 18. He used one, and Vivid broke it down. They had 30 splashes before that fight began. 30 splashes. I can go 3 games and not find 30 splashes.
I mean, honestly, if you get that many chugs, like, you could just hang out, chill. You don't have to press forward on anybody. You could just heal off against Surge, get into the end game, heal off in the end game. I mean, there's so much potential when you have that many chug splashes. So I'm interested to see what they're going to do with them. But the Roller and Jackson, another team, another formidable duo that we need to pay close attention to, is right there, perked up, ready to go. But a team finding themselves in the storm. Yet again, it seems like every time we turn in with Crackley and his teammate, he's just honestly in the storm.
I heard him crunching down some apples, maybe some slapberries as well. Gotta imagine the possibility of the Harvester augment. I say possibility because you can still get some heals, some HP off of both slapberries and apples along the way. And you can kind of see Sphinx doing the same thing, just trying to gather it up. And for him, those could be used for 2 different ways. You see him lacking the Shockwave Hammer. It could be used for mobility as well, not just the healing portion.
Yeah, you know, it's funny. I feel like when we came into the season and you had the Slap Juice introduced, this was like a game-changing movement item. Being able to have unlimited energy so you can sprint is massive. It reminds me of getting those chili chugs in the inventory, but genuinely, those Slap Juices end up lasting longer. So those in the berries are honestly an undervalued, underutilized item in the chapter, but you see other teams are starting to pick up on it. They're starting to realize their value. So we could see a lot of players begin to change up the way they run.
That's why I liked, like, at the beginning of the season, everybody had their tier list, which augments were rated more than others. But at this point, I wouldn't say it'd be drastically different, but I think you would see a little bit of a different tier list now that players had a chance to really play with those augments, figure it out, how they want to play, and how it really changes your play style depending on if you have a ton of loot, if you lack loot, or if you lack Surge. For Tragic and Cease, they don't lack Surge, but 146 above the threshold is going to allow them to rotate early, but as soon as they get to their spot, they're going to have to start thinking about it, just like holding Acorn. I didn't expect them to be in this position. 152 below the damage threshold, especially since they did get that first zone.
Yeah, this is interesting. The way that this is playing out for them is not what I was anticipating here for the first game. They definitely had a better Surge plan on day 1, so looks like they're struggling off the start here for day number 2, but a team that's not struggling is Walkers and Vert, getting in the fight, getting some big shots there. Mason Aim just trying to play backwards as his team is down, but now the exchange comes through. Walker's taking a ton of damage. He is 1 shot away from going down, so his teammate is going to need to intervene, and that is Vert just taking those shots there, pressing Mason back. Mason now 1 HP 2. Walkers, will he be able to clean it up? The shots are coming through, but neither team is willing to jump forward. They know how weak both of them are, and all of this can end in just a moment.
Yeah, they realize that with 1 knock already through, a bunch of damage, and even the information he's getting from the Falcon Scout, it's only a matter of time. Especially that you got to realize 2 teams above, 2 to the west, 1 more coming in at bat, and there goes Walkers finishing the job onto Glace. That's going to be a huge siphon. Mats that they can gather if they continue to pull forward. And Mason's doing a good job, though, for how long this fight has actually been with just a sliver of HP. This could be the saving grace, because as soon as a couple of those teams come in, they begin a third party, he could try to use it as a distraction, but there goes the Falcon Scout once more, and then the final shot to finish it off. Down goes Mason, down goes Glace. Unfortunate, but for Walkers and Vert, that's just the start of something big.
Yeah, I mean, look, Walkers and Vert picking up some eliminations. That's nothing new here for this team. They are aggressive, and they know how to handle those mid-game fights, and we see it yet happen again, but Monk and Users, not the same story. User going to go down. Monk has left as a solo player, just going to try to hold on here as Crackley and his teammate press forward in the box. Unfortunate situation here, not what they were anticipating, of course, but when you have a team like Crackley and co, it is tough to go up against them. I mean, they just continually show that they are a threat when it comes to taking these fights in the mid game.
Yeah, especially since they already got that first elimination. They realize they're 1 of 2 things. They're going to disengage, find their way safely to zone, or Bunk's going to try to go back for that reboot card, try to go back because he is down on Surge, so it's disengaging might not even be an option here. as long as Crackling and his duo know that timing is of the essence for Monk, they can just continue to play defensive. They hear the splashes coming out, and that's going to be a huge red flag as Monk is continuously trying to put some pressure on, but push comes to shove. He has to figure out one way to start getting proactive. You can see him trying to break down the builds, getting that piece control, which is important. You got Crackling and his duo just immediately bulldozing through the box to finish the job as Monk and User go down altogether.
Yeah, huge finish there for Crackley and co. But now it is all about Acorn and Cold. Top of our leaderboard here, just hanging out. They have found some damage, which is good. This is a good sign. That means that Surge game plan is not necessarily completely out the window, but they still need more. Only 80 damage above is not enough to really stay comfortable. But wait a minute. As I say that, a major player in the lobby must have gone down because now they are 600 damage above the threshold.
I mean, that just to me just goes to show how different these top teams are getting Storm Surge versus everybody else in the lobby. That drastic of a change means oh so much, but if you take a look, Booga and Peterbot, 4 eliminations overall. This is my key to victory, right? They are in 13th or so place. If they want to come and take that top spot in order to overcome that gap, it's by high placing games and a good number of eliminations. For Booga and Peterbot, they don't have a choice other than to go big or go home.
Yeah, like you said, they really don't have a choice. They need to do everything in their power, and they do not have another game to waste here, Jacob, because realistically, every point, every second, and every moment counts here because they are that far behind, and they are a team, again, that genuinely can take this pressure, the weight of the world on their shoulders right now, and convert that into a grand finals win.
Weight of the world seems like it's on Hachi's shoulder right now as well. Suscript's down. Shots coming in from the distance. It's going to be one player right on top. His name's going to be Larson, who's also a solo. Probably losing Nani across the way. And that's the unfortunate thing about this stage in the game. Yeah, you can probably get a reboot off, but if you see where the zone is actually at, it is 4th zone at that as well. It is going to take a miracle if that is going to be your plan. So for Hachi and Larson both, they just got to figure it out. And only one splash to his name. He's probably either waiting to scavenge up somebody else's loot or get some sort of surprise attack.
Yeah, surprise attack might be the only way there as their 2 solos competing. But another solo in this game is Justice going up against Acorn and Cold, but also Chubbs there on the other side. So Justice just waiting for these other teams to rotate. And unfortunately for him, Cold and Acorn going to go ahead and build up to a higher elevation point in their existing build. But they still need those shots, and now it is time. They're going to get in the box here as they're looking onto 2 other teams. They said, you know what? We hear your shot, and we'll raise you one and add our own.
Yep, you can kind of notice that instead of floating around that mountain, they immediately went up. You want to be proactive. You don't want to be having zone push you up that hill with the rest of the teams. And unfortunately for Justice right below, we saw why he's down on Surge so bad. Mega went down early trying to gather it up, and he's trying to make a desperation attempt into a success, and he got shut down by Acorn and Cold, adding more points to their total. Just remember, coming in on the day, they were 39 points ahead of 2nd place. That is not much at all. So for Acorn and Cold, the pressure is on them, just like everybody else in the lobby.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's some real pressure here on NPen and Chess Genius as well. This team, despite their big name, despite the understanding and, of course, the ability amongst this duo, they have been consistent, but not consistent in the way that gets them in the top 5, top 10, but it's consistent that keeps them in the top 25 here, this competition. So for them, they're just thinking about what big things do they have to do to climb this leaderboard, what big things they have to do to take the top spot, and will it even be possible in these 6 games ahead?
It's going to be a tough one, especially for, in this game, anybody that's on the north or east side of the zone. That's where it is beginning to push everybody in, congesting, jam-packing them together like a can of sardines. It's going to be hard to come out alive unless you have your game plan down packed, peeking through the cones, building towers in the sky, gathering information, figuring out where the duos are actually at. Is going to be huge, and for Duke, 108 above the damage threshold. He's trying to be proactive in his own mind. As a solo, gathering that surge later on the game is going to be near impossible without risking everything you have.
Yeah, interesting to see the way this is playing out here. Again, so many teams find themselves on this side of the edge. It is Okus and Noxy, though. Despite them continually winning in the last few games, the trailer park off-spawn engagement, they are struggling to maintain some semblance in the end game. We did see Noxy and Okus have one really, really good game, but it could all change here. But another team that's changing for is Acorn and Cold. They need one shot. One shot is all it takes to keep Cold in it. Unfortunately, not going to find it. Acorn also now 6 damage above. So for a moment, for literally just a moment, he is safe. But he cannot afford to be...
Thank Fortnite was for the August, man. He got some big bush bombs. He has the Bush Warrior. I'm over here biting my nails, worried. I'm nervous for him. But oh my God, talk about being nervous. I saw Peterbot go down in the feed, and now we see Booga go down altogether. Unfortunate circumstances. And I'm not even only talking about Booga and Peterbot. They jump back on board Cold. He's falling over 100 damage below the threshold. A big bush bomb can't save you in a situation like this, especially if you take a big tag like that. Down goes first place, just as cascading placement points begin to set in.
That is a huge loss here for the lobby, but a huge gain for some of these other teams that are in the top 10. They realize, they see the names in the elimination feed. They see Acorn and Cold are down. So now it is their opportunity to strike. How long can they remain in this game, and how many points can they put on the board, and how can they shift the top end of the leaderboard? That is the question that a lot of these teams are getting ready to answer, as it is time here, Jacob. Moving zones are about to really get heated up.
It's gonna be a real treat for one of these teams. If they're able to claim that high ground early, hold on to it. We see a couple of teams yesterday find some success, others not so much. And for Axie and Swirl, they're looking to be that team. You look at their match right now, that's my only concern, is do they have enough if another team begins to build up and try to challenge them? But you know, Revise the Reciprocal is going to be one of those teams that finds themselves at least thinking about high ground.
Yeah, I mean, look, high ground is definitely going to help when it comes to some of these games. And we did see, as you mentioned, Revive Reciprocal taking height there in 6th zone in game number 1 and holding it. But no other team has been able to do that since. So it really depends on what you're going to be doing here. Lots of different game plans setting forward. Kanata and Adria still in this game. Most likely now going to be able to take the top spot after this game. However, it is so uncertain because anything goes here in the next few moments.
Anything goes indeed, and Bryce and Chubbs, one of those teams that have the least, or some of the least experience here in the lobby, but they're playing like they've been here time and time again. But down goes Agers. Kanata's being left by himself. 15 splashes. He can stagger himself back, but does he have the opportunity? Does he have the time? He needs to find a moment to stabilize himself. And oh my gosh, a huge shot to be fired on Divert, knocking him down. You can see the huge switch up, dropping the splashes, getting the shockwave hammer, and keeping the show on the road. If anybody else saw all that loot, they're going to try to bull rush in and take down Kanata and steal what they think is theirs.
And that's why you see him moving so quickly to get away from it. Such a smart play, but no, Revive's going to end up going down. Reciprocal on the back foot, just trying to stay in this. He has the hammer, though, so he can easily disengage from this other team, but it looks like they've already slowed down as well. So Reciprocal now taking a moment, taking a breather, and just trying to figure out where he can go next.
I'm going to call it a slow start, but a couple of mishaps for some of our top teams in the lobby. Trashy and Pump looking to take advantage, but Trashy accidentally shockwaving his teammate into another duo's box, taking him down altogether. The big clicks and Donnie towards your bottom right side of the screen, looking like they're smooth sailing, trying to keep that front side of the zone, take some opportunity to shoot back when the moment comes. But Iamzo and Rise, they have the high ground for now, but NPen challenging for a few short moments before getting shut down once more by Iamzo.
I mean, Clicks just lost his teammate there, so he's going to need to do something big. But with Iamzo and Rise on the high ground, it could be all over for this duo, for any of the other duos, I should say, in this lobby. Because when they have height, you are going to get punished. They know how to connect those big shots, but now getting challenged for high ground, Iamzo Rise going to have to play towards the mid layer and just stay calm for a second.
I like the way he would read that perfectly. He cannot hold high ground without Mats dropping down low. A daring play. We'll see if it works out for him later in the game. As Trashy trying to get to the front side. 2 different shockwave hammers, trying to give himself a bunch of mobility and a huge escape plan when push comes to shove. And you can see him trying to stay to the front side of zone. With lacking Mats, he's going to have to look back and figure out some sort of refresh scenario, just like Kanata. But he has a couple more seconds to work with. 10 splashes. He can stagger himself back and scavenge all the loot from the fallen players before.
I mean, look, so much is going on. When we thought Rise had the high ground, he had to take it from him. Rise barely in and now getting knocked there by Bryce, the new high ground flamer. But no, he even potentially losing high ground in this moment as well. So much is happening. The hammer play into Storm, a bit of a misplay, too far, and unfortunately Bryce is going to go down, leaving Chubbs left as a solo player.
He got caught out at the tail end. Into the top 6 we go. You talk about a solo player, but 5 eliminations so far. He's ready and up for the challenge, just like Trash. You can see him bobbing and weaving, trying to get the information. What is the best play? He goes up, he tries to go forward, landing on N-Pen and Chess. That's not going to be the play. He gets denied for now. Back into the Storm to grab that second Shockwave Hammer. Without any builds, this is going to be his best opportunity to move around and cause some chaos.
I mean, and chaos indeed is caused as Trashy lands a massive shot here, but he's going up against the duo. He needs to be careful. He cannot overextend in a fight like this, especially with no builds left. He gets the knock. Will he be able to hold him down? He gets 2. He gets 2 eliminations to finish off that duo.
He goes back to back, keeping himself alive, but he doesn't get the siphon to go through and keep himself going. Now it's down. N-Pen and Chess, the only duo standing, but Aoxy, he has the world on his shoulders, and it's not going to be enough, though, as N-Pen and Chess Juniors, with 11 eliminations, take game number 7.
I said it here in game 7. I said N-Pen and Chess were going to be a duo to pay close attention to. They needed a big game. Well, guess what? They delivered. And I gotta be honest, N-Pen's collegiate experience might be showing here in the grand finals because that was the top tier gameplay.
Hey, I'd agree with you. It has to say something about his journey, playing against every single type of player, from collegiate to professional, at the top of the game in one of the most stacked set lobbies we've seen in a while. Getting that elimination onto Quanti, realizing they're in a 2v1 situation, and playing patient to seal the deal. The teamwork, shockwaving up, causing some chaos, sending Aoxy down to finish it off.
Look at the excitement from N-Pen. He knows how big of a performance that was there to finish off game number 7. But that's only the first game of the day here, Jacob. There's still 5 more to play before we can crown our champions. So much still on the table.
Yep, and you saw a lot of our top competitors, including Acorn and Cold, go down early in that game. So the leaderboard has to be in shambles. Luckily, we have the incredible Zeke, Taco, and Kelly to bring us home.
Thank you so much, guys. A completely different atmosphere here in day number 2. Yesterday, game 1 started chaos, unbelievable chaos. Today, very different. Members of the top 3 going down left, right, and center. Solo efforts coming out from people like Trashy. Game 7 was incredible.
Couldn't have said it better myself, Zeke. And not only that, but I think for N-Pen and Chess Gaming, they did such an excellent job at controlling that high ground aspect, but making sure to also drop down a layer for N-Pen specifically, so that way he could find those much needed resources that were actually kind of just cluttering and gathering up on those lower layers. But I think in general, this duo really just had such strong execution when they were actually moving through that low ground and then choosing the perfect moments to actually overtake on height.
Yeah, I mean, Chess Genius proving his namesake right now, playing incredibly calculated throughout that game, knowing when to leave height, knowing when to take the eliminations and the aggression. And obviously, that worked out for them right now. A victory royale plus 20 eliminations over the 7 games is going to put them up in a decent spot. I don't know necessarily if we're going to be seeing them in our top 10, but still, that is how you want to start the day 2.
Yeah, you just need a couple games like this, right? Let's just chain a few of those together, see if we can strike up into that top 10, which does remind me, let's take a look at our standings, see how things are kind of shaking up. So, I mean, again,
wow,
just look at this. Bryce and Chubbs jump up in that number 1 spot. Remember, they actually kind of had that moment where they got eliminated, right? And in another world or another universe, they go on to win that game and like make that lead huge.
I mean, obviously they played super well, but also a team that played really well was Trashy and Pump right there. And we actually got to interview Trashy earlier on in the day, and I asked him what's going to happen once that zone does go to the southern side, as they're all the way in the far north side. and clearly didn't do much at all because Trashy and Pump still performed incredibly well. Trashy having to play the solo clutch game that we see time and time again at the end here, and unfortunately the hammer knocking him out just a little too far at the end right there, and so close to grabbing a much needed siphon, but just missing it so closely.
Trashy's expression said everything for me in that pregame interview, though. That man looked absolutely locked in. And when you watch him go for shotgun blast after blast after blast, the fact that he nearly had a triple elim series there, and the refreshes, if they'd managed to come through just a little bit sooner there for him, we might have seen him go just that much further, at least solidifying second place, maybe even first, because if anybody could take that 1v2 contest, it would definitely be Trashy.
That was disgusting, by the way, Trashy. In those moments, once again, this is a grand final, okay? Pressure's on, and for Trashy to just be like 1v2, no problem. Absolutely amazing. We keep looking here. Aegis and Kanata, I still don't understand how Kanata always has 18 splashes, bro.
But
where?
What's even crazier is that he had 18 splashes in a moment, and this is unfortunately when we did see Aegis go down, but Kanata took such advantage of this. Look at the loadout that he has right now, and then in a few seconds, he is going to have a completely different loadout, probably one of the best loadouts that you could have in the end game right now. Look at that change.
Well, that's the thing, though, is that we see even Aegis investing a slot for splashes as well. So for this duo to have as many heals available to them, it just kind of showcases an instance of getting a little bit surprised inside of those boxing movements. And for Kanata especially, because of where these zones initially started out, this looked like their game to take home. I mean, faulty splits right in their backyard. You see the zone already initially starting to pull that way. Granted, it ended up a little bit closer to Frenzy by the end of it, but it still, they were in such prime positioning for it to crumble at the last second. Definitely a little bit unexpected.
It definitely looked a bit congested, though, towards the faulty splits drop right there. So maybe that was part of the issue, but obviously they were able to make it into the end game, so it wasn't too much of an issue. But we have to talk about a team that has really surprised us, and that is Chubbs' team. I mean, Chubbs and Bryce coming out of nowhere. They barely have any finals performances, and to be sitting in first place spot, Taco, I'm incredibly impressed.
And when you watch it back as well from yesterday, when they were able to pick up a Victory Royale, it's incredible to think that they're still finding those instances. And again, don't want to jinx them. It is only game number 7, aka first game of day 2. But I like the fact that these newer duos are trying to be proactive in terms of controlling the high ground, because we can see Bryce here very low on his mats, but depending on how you play it, you can kind of fool some of those other teams into thinking you have more resources available than what you actually do.
This is already shaking out to be crazy, okay? I don't know that I can handle more games like this from day number 2 here in NA East. That was just the first game. There's so much more on the line for so many of these duos. So many of these duos that feel like they have so much to prove to themselves, to us, to make sure they say, hey, we deserve a spot in the global championships later on this year. I just feel like I'm gonna continue to stress. Don't worry, I will stress for all of us cumulatively, so you don't have to. All you have to do is get ready for game number 2 of the day, which is actually game number 8. Thanks, Kelly. You take over. All right, Kelly. Kelly, come here. Send us away, Kelly.
All right, everyone, it's time for the second game of the day. It's game number 8, so let's get to it.
It's time. Game number 8 is here. And I'm going to be honest, I was not expecting so many changes to the leaderboard, Jacob.
No, I didn't expect it at all, but my big question mark, Bryce and Chubbs, some of the least experienced in the lobby, can they maintain it? Can they hold on to where they're at on the leaderboard? No, but in a positive way, because they shot themselves up to first.
Hey, look, I'm going to be honest with you. This is definitely a bit of a surprise for me. However, they have now put themselves in a position to do well the rest of this tournament. So we'll find out exactly how well they're going to do as game number 8 is here. Let's get into it, Jacob.
Game number 8, like you're saying, it's only the second one on the day. Can we actually just do all 12 again today? I'm ready for 13 games. Can we do 14 games? I'm ready for just spending a lifetime here on this stage with you, Panda.
I don't want it to end. I don't want it to end, but we'll keep it going. As now Threats and Macwood. This is interesting. We haven't really tuned in over to the Lonely Labs area too much off spawn, but for Threats, they aren't contested. But speaking of a team that is contested, Blake and Bizzle again going for the 50-50 with Polarize and Users. Such a risky play. Polarize taking quite a bit of damage, but smart on him. Users and Polarize are out again. So despite Bizzle going down, Blake was able to clean it up. My gosh, have they really figured out this drop?
I don't know what I just witnessed. I seen Bizzle and one Polarized with Users just pickaxing at their opponents. It became a 1v1 with 2 different heavies. Woo! Blake coming out on top. That's how you turn it around from game number 1 to game number 2, or game number 7 and 8. They're back to back. That's how you get things going on day 2.
I mean, you're going to remember the first few games of yesterday, Blake and Bizzle unfortunately losing the off-spawn battle, but today they've turned it all around. Even seeing them in the last few games of yesterday, they were turning it around. So it's great to see that they figured out exactly what their game plan is, and they executed on it flawlessly. But speaking of flawless execution, it is Aoxy landing those much-needed shots onto Chimp, going to cause them to be pushed back, and now his teammate left as a solo player going to be exposed here as Aoxy just tries to get in the box.
Yep, Spade. I don't know how they got so separated, but now they have to dig deep, and he goes down yet again. You see Chimp trying to close the distance, minimize the audio. Aoxy has some sort of an idea where he's at, but not the exact location. And that's why you see them on the hunt. That's 4 points possibly up for grabs. And for them, you saw where they finished in that last game. It's about keeping the momentum going from game 7 to game 8. You see him peeking through. He spotted him around the corner. This is his chance, and a chance he will take. Chimp and Spade are no more, and Aoxy and Swirl rise to the top yet again.
See, Aoxy was comfortable taking that little bit of damage there.
Trade.
He just wanted to trade. He knew, look, I don't care if you hit me with a few SMG shots because I'm going to clean it up with a nice, focused, heavy shotgun shot, and that's what you need in those moments is just focus. Because that heavy shotgun, it takes quite a bit of aim to really land those shots. So for him, that was a great play.
And you can already see in your mini-map. I'm always looking in the mini-map while I'm looking at these players, seeing where the zone is going to go. It's a little bit of a pull for Trashy and Pump. So time is of the essence if they want to get themselves a spot in the zone. Bryce and Chubbs, a team I'm so proud of. I feel like a proud parent, even though they probably have no idea who I am. I just want to see them continue to perform. And this reason why I say that is because it gives everybody hope, right? The players that are not the superstars, that are not those big names saying, hey, that could be me. That could be me next. There is FNCS Major 2 around the corner.
Yeah, I mean, look, even though we're in the grand finals of Major 1, now Major 2 is not far out. So for the teams that aren't necessarily getting their game plan, their strategy down now, don't worry. There are more majors this year, more opportunities for you to go on to the global championship. So just learn from today's games. But for a team that is in contention, for a team that is at quite near the top of the leaderboard, it is Kanata and Agers. Their game plan and strategies throughout this competition have been flawlessly executed. But in that last game, with Agers going down, Kanata clutching up a few more points, it wasn't necessarily what they were looking for there in game number 7.
And you can see Yamzo and Rise looting up, throwing all the loot or all the extra hills into a central location. That way they can keep stacking themselves up, figure out what loadout they want to get, and then continue on with their game. A solid game plan, if I say so myself. I've seen so many teams use similar strategies to kind of stack up their Storm Surge so they don't have to worry about later in the game while maintaining as much heals as possible. Acorn and Cold trying to do the same thing, but you can see they're inside of the zone already. Much more than they were in that last game. And that leads me to ask the question mark, or hopefully we'll see it later in the game, is how they maintain that Storm Surge strategy. Because game number 8 or 7 on the day, it wasn't the best.
It wasn't. However, for Aviv and User, they know that even if they are down, they're not out of this competition. We saw Aviv play exceptionally well in the Surge week. And so for a team that knows how to play in these make or break, last chance opportunity shots, and honestly come out on top, I'm not going to count them out quite yet.
No, I wouldn't necessarily count them out either, especially a team that has so much experience. But I wouldn't count out Reciprocal and Revised team that can threaten for the high ground at a moment's notice. They can cause destruction, almost play leaderboard busters and bust everybody down when you don't expect them coming. And you can see them trying to rotate as close to the center as possible. And you see the position that they're in right now, they're not boxing up. They're continually trying to bypass everybody around so they can get a cliffside of their own, build that tower in the sky that we see so many teams do, and then that's where they're going to start to gather up their surge.
Yeah, Surge is going to be important here. A lot of these teams were struggling yesterday, just not figuring out exactly how to connect those shots early on and causing some serious issue for these duos. But for a duo like Bugha and Peterbot, 5 more opportunities, I should say, to shift this leaderboard in their favor. You know, look, as much as I was saying in the pre-show and during Surge Week and even yesterday, how I don't know that they were going to win, I still do strongly believe that Bugha is the GOAT of Fortnite. I mean, his accolades, his accomplishments speak for themselves. So while I don't know that this is going to be the competition for them, that does not mean we're not going to see them do some big things here in the later rounds of this tournament.
Now, I kind of believe it as well. They've already ramped it up in that 7th game, trying to keep it going, just like Aaron and Naves. Much better performance to start off their day. Hopefully they can kind of propel that forward into more. And, you know, from one masterclass to another, I talk about Bryce and Chubbs and the little bit of experience that they lack, but a man that doesn't lack experience and can lay out the whole plan is Vivid himself.
Way too kind to me, Jacob. Tuning in with Bryce and Chubbs here. Only 10 points separates 1st through 4th right now. At the top of that, of course, is Bryce and Chubbs. And listen, Chubbs is a better man than me, selecting the chili chug splashes over the purple thunder shotgun. He, of course, does have that shockwave hammer. Bryce as well has a shockwave hammer of his own, so lots of splashes going into the end game for this duo.
It makes you think, what are these teams prioritizing? What are they focusing on? What makes more sense to have in the inventory? And sure enough, that was definitely a big decision. In my opinion, right? Any game that I've played here in Chapter 4, I've always gone for the better shotgun. I think that the extra damage is just more important for me, but clearly the pros are seeing a very different situation for them. So maybe those chili chugs are just that much more valuable.
Yeah, I got to agree with it. In these late games, we're seeing a lot of movement going to be needed. Use multiple shockwaves to get out of dodge. What happens if you don't have those extra charges left to get out again? Use those chili chug splashes. Not only does it grant you some movement speed, but it's allow you to get your HP or shield up at a moment's notice. Rokane and Joji, Revive's reciprocal, all getting close by. Wouldn't call this a POI, but the landmark where it has a static launch pad as well. Lots of mobility. And even if you don't need it, you can see Revive's and reciprocal trying to use the shockwave hammer to break upward, drop these players down into their hands.
I mean, honestly, smart play on their part, but you saw Revive get caught off guard there, drop down for just a moment, and immediately realizing this is not a safe fight to take. Now just getting back with his teammate here. They hold a really nice spot in the POI. Not only do they have the advantage over the enemies within their area, they're also keeping Joji and his teammate at bay underneath because they have blocked off the launch pad. So even if they want to try to escape, even if they want to go somewhere else, they're not going to be able to unless they go through them.
Oh my gosh. Cam and Jigglyflopper trying to have a much better exchange off spawn. Don't want to leave it down to any solos. They realize how much it impacts the later portions of the game. A Shadow, he defends the angle from Cam. Great job watching out as Jigglyflopper goes down altogether. No heals on the name, but a huge tag from Cam. That could be a life-saving one at that. Continues hot on the heels, drops down into the box, turns, tries to take out Shadow as well, but he's in a whole other team's box. He tries to break downwards, but he gets tagged up again by Shadow. The punches coming in left and right from Sphinx and Shadow to take down both Jigglyflopper and Cam. That was well played.
That was a tough one. He took it to the chin, and I believe he'll come back here stronger, especially looking at how Cam was playing that. Honestly, as a solo player, playing that very, very well. But Shadow and Sphinx just getting that extra few bits of damage off to finish off the duo. And good for them. You know what? This is a duo that didn't necessarily have the strongest day one. So for them coming into day two, getting a few eliminations, especially eliminations onto big players like Cam, I mean, great start.
You've seen a prime example right here, right before our very eyes as well. Kanata and Agers. You notice something different? 5 splashes instead of the normal 18. Leads you to believe that he chose a different augment this time around, trying to suit a different style of play, trying to climb up the leaderboards even more. And that's one thing we talked about as well, that the performance they've been having at his duo is phenomenal. And they have the potential to pop off as solos as well. They're one of the teams that you can't count out at a moment's notice. Doesn't matter if they have one bad game or go down earlier than you'd expect.
Yeah, I mean, look, so much can still happen in this game that even though we're hyping up Chubbs and Bryce, we're hyping up Kanata and Agers, it can all change. We saw it last game with Acorn and Cold. They went down way earlier than anybody anticipated, and it changed the trajectory of the way that leaderboard looks going into game number 8. So For Walkers and Vert, they look to be the disruptors. They look to be the players that cause the change here, as they've had a pretty decent game number 7, game number 8, looking to make it the same with big tags coming through here. Probably not going to have to worry about Surge here in a second.
You can see all the fruits and vegetables laying around him. You got to imagine a harvester, augment coming into play. And really take note of the Falcon Scout as well. The information Walkers are gathering time and time again for a duo that can get aggressive, close the distance at a moment's notice. That could be an attribute that a lot of players don't necessarily think of. Quanti and Scare, phenomenal plays. One zone to the next. They're trying to play the slow side of the zone, where there's the least amount of players actually going to contest the spot, but this might not be the best thing for them. 70 below Surge, continuously falling even further. It almost makes me wonder, is their plan to just simply out-heal it? You got to be the fishing rod that just dropped. Jelly Angler Augment is a possibility. It could be a smart play.
Yeah, and it might be the play for them. Look, for teams that struggle with mid-game fights, the best option is to avoid them, right? But when you avoid mid-game fights, you also run into issues with Surge. So the only answer to that, in my opinion, is the Jelly Angler Augment. I mean, look, that thing, when you are set up near a body of water and you just fish with the rod that is provided through the Augment, you're going to be able to heal off against pretty much anything. So for them, that's their challenge. Will they just tank Storm, tank that Surge, and hope that other teammates end up going down or other players end up going down? I don't know. It's a tough call to make.
A little bit more separated than I would hope for Vert and Walker. But you can see why it's so. 185 below the damage threshold. Trying to gather additional angles to try to pop some shots. You can see Vert's going to be the one to stagger himself farther back than Walker's. He has the Shockwave Hammer. He can close the distance sooner rather than later. Doesn't like what he sees and immediately tries to reunite. They already built that tower high in the sky. They just have to extend forward just a little bit, but Walker's taking a little bit too much damage. Heal's going to be used moment here to stabilize, but you see so many other teams on the side. This is what you're talking about. You take that damage early, you're closing the opportunities that you have to grab the Storm Surge. Gotta be careful.
Yeah. You definitely do have to be careful. You can't be putting yourself out there. We saw that with Peterbite yesterday, where he was just basically diving in front of shots. I mean, he was obviously he's looking for Surge, and rightfully so. He needed it, but he ended up taking way more damage than he should have. And unfortunately, that's what we're seeing here happen with Vert and Walkers. Not only are they getting tagged up by Surge, but they're also getting tagged up by the players there in the distance as now Walkers is down. But looking to connect those final shots on the Vert here are two teams, Revive's Reciprocal being one of them. Of course, this could be huge for them. This could be the refresh that they absolutely need. But for Vert, it might be over.
Yeah, you lost your other half, your duo, your teammate that you look to time and time again to try to hold that confidence at a high. Revives and Reciprocal. Got to be feeling confident after that one. Refresh to propel themselves forward. Keep them going in this game. Trashy and Pump looking like kind of a little down. A little bit too far down, but you can see the 12 slap berries, big bush bomb as well. You got to imagine the Augment's trying to match the gameplay. Pump living with just a sliver of HP. Trashy needs to look behind, and he's going to make sure that they reunite together again before they begin to try to set themselves up, just like Quanti and Scare. We talked about them, and they're not trying to take these mid-game fights. They're just simply trying to out-heal it in this scenario. Will it work out? Honestly, I'm invested to find out.
I mean, look, it's a viable strategy. Out-heal Surge as much as you can here. Use the Jellyfish to do that, but also having to use some of those chug splashes. That's when it becomes a problem for me. When you're utilizing the resources you need to keep for the late game, then there's a problem with the strategy, especially considering when you have that Jelly Augment, you need to start using it early. You can't wait until Surge is ticking away at you, because you want to have a stockpile of those Jellyfish before that Purple Lightning begins to strike.
Yep. I agree with you 100%. Proactivity is going to be key for a lot of these teams. You make one mistake in a lobby like this, it's something you're going to be looking back. Probably won't forget either. Agers and Kanata looking all around. 564 above the damage threshold. That in more than enough to have that feeling of comfortability at a stage like this. They're not having to hunt for surge. They're not having to make desperate plays. Just like Peterbot and Booga, they need a phenomenal closeout here on day number 2. And I said it in that last one, it's going to come by big elimination games and high placements. Since the zone is already here towards Slappy, all they did really in this game is just try to grab that surge early on, make sure they don't have to worry about it late in the game, because they know as later and farther this one goes, those eliminations will naturally present themselves.
I mean, look, if you're Acorn Cold or Peterbot and Booga, you're feeling pretty ecstatic about where this zone is pooled. You haven't had to put forth much effort. You've been able to kind of maintain some of those vital resources because you've been in the spot that you land, haven't had to move. Obviously, surge would be the only factor, but clearly for Acorn and Cold, they were able to overcome that. So for these teams now, place within Slappy Shores, they need to start moving, and they need to start moving fast. You hear them all waiting. Who's going to be the first one to shockwave hammer? Who's going to be the first one to launch away? That's the question, as all these teams just linger and wait for people to start moving.
It's like one of those situations, move too early, get focused by the lobby. Rotate too late, you get focused by the lobby. Timing has to be perfect here, or as close to it as possible for a lot of these teams making this rotation. And for Aviv and User, they're just trying to get everything left behind from Booga and Peterbot before they rotated out. Yamzo and Rise, a team looking to not only have a much better day than they did last time, because that was already a great day number 1 for them, but a better day number 2 to hopefully claim their first FNCS title and the last one for the NA East region.
Yeah, I mean, they're looking to claim it here as Yamzo just taking shots there in the distance. Big plays going out, though, as teams are taking these fights. Despite them not necessarily needing to, these teams are now on top of one another, just taking the fights that they can take. One of those teams, though, is Kanata and Agers, just sneaking around down below. They're waiting. They want one of these teams to run in front of them, because you know when Kanata shoots, he don't miss.
Yeah, and he's going to have to not miss, or at least Agers. The mats, the resources, the lowest I've seen a team like this, but they sneak up, they land a huge shot, but they get shockwave hammered back. That's gonna be Tahi trying to keep himself alive. Third party comes in, Danger Hero not able to save the day. Kanata under stress, under pressure, trying to keep their game intact. And we talk about how well they've been performing as a duo. Well, now it's your time, Kanata, the king of the solo clutches. If you wanna hold that top position, it's all on your shoulders, and this is the moment. Against Death here, they already took down Tahi. Splash is coming out, trying to stabilize himself, but Death realized the position he's in. That's not elimination you want to let go for free. He tries to shockwave hammer in, but he goes up and over to greener pastures.
Yeah, this is a tough rotate for Kanata, as he's now the focus. Anytime you get in a fight like that and you're not in zone, you're immediately going to be looked at, and unfortunately for him, that's what's going to happen here. But Danger Hero popping off here. He's going to get a little bit of help, but it's not going to be enough. No heroes in this situation, as both Kanata and Agers could not hold on, despite that Danger Hero augment activating.
Hello, Leaderboard. Nice of you to open on up to have us a great finish, or a possible one at that, at the end of the day. As you look on board, Pump, who went down, Trashy's gonna be the last one left. 10 HP, 8 builds to his name. The information right now isn't how to get to the next zone, it's how do I get this refresh to keep myself alive.
Staying alive, that's the name of it, as we get ready for these next moving zones. Pamsu and Fatch, though, doing a good job of staying alive. One of the only big duos here left. You see, look, 22, right? So 22 teams left, 42 players. Means there's a few solos looming there. And some of those solos just happen to be our top 10 teams. So for players just outside the top 10, now's your time. Now's your time to strike. Now's your time to take it. And with Dubs being one of them, it does look like he is a solo player. He needs to be careful, because Jackson and D-Roller, they're solo hunters. They find those people that are by themselves, that are at a disadvantageous position, and they strike and take it.
We already seen them perform yesterday to a high standard. Now it's all about keeping up with said standard. You can see that he's looking back towards the shoreline, seeing if anybody is trying to have a relaxing day at the beach. He spots out N-Pen, but knowing that there's not much he can do about it, he's still continuing to gather all the intel he can. There's Reciprocal and Revise, Yamzo and Rise as well. Two teams already looking like they have the potential to hold on or take the high ground.
Hold on is going to be the name of it. Hold on, because this is about to be the bumpiest ride of grand finals here in the NA East region. You see the storm pulling towards the south. Acorn still in it. Pamsu still in it. And Yamzo and Rise not only in it, but taking high ground.
This is going to be a great chance for, honestly, for Yamzo and Rise not only to take and hold on to this high ground, it's hold on to it from zone after zone after zone. They're moving on back over towards Slappy's shores to where there is some height already out there. You see Fatch is peeking through, and he just catches Trashy slipping, plays a game of peekaboo, and comes out on top.
I mean, I'm gonna be honest, I'm impressed that Trashy lasted that long. That was really good. 10 HP, no material, just hanging out as a solo player, but Fatch able to pick that one up. Tragics and Sisto looking to keep this one going as they take some big shots. The Mythic Munition Augment playing into Tragic's favor because that man don't miss.
Yeah, I heard that in the distance. Launchpad going down. That was Quanti and Scare who's able to find that one up while they were fishing for jellyfish. It's going to be recycled by so many other players in the lobby who might lack that mobility. Yamzo spots his time to go from one high ground to the other. These builds from the start of the game, you got to thank Acorn and Cold for that one, as Booga and Peterbot trying to stay out of that destruction that is on the low ground and even finding some shots towards the backside of zone. That's going to be Dubs who feels that hurt in the morning.
Yeah, that's going to be a painful shot that he's going to have to take there on the chin. But Fatch and Pamsu dropping the team down does take quite a bit of damage. So going to need to heal back up and just play off of this. They got some shots in. That's great. That's going to keep them above the threshold. But you can't afford to continue to pursue that fight, especially with the way that it was going. But for Avivan users, they're on the back foot. They're on the edge of the zone, and they need to start going. They cannot afford to take storm damage like this. You see, he does have a med miss and some chug splashes. However, those are way more valuable in those final moments of the game when you know you can play the storm.
You can see Yamzo and Rise building underneath, just like you see some of our top competitors from every single region begin to reinforce their chances. Pamso and Fatch still trying to cause chaos in the lobby. They took down Kanata, almost took down Booga and Peterbot as well. Superstar or no superstar, they came to play and take over here in day number 2, and you can see him trying to break through, reunite with his teammates. Being box to box towards this end game is going to be important and crucial for the success, and you can see Booga under pressure. Peterbot's going to hold the covers, and now they keep this show on the road.
Yeah, and this is the big game that Booga and Peterbot needed, but as I say that, Revise takes a big shot onto him, but not going to be able to find the full elimination as Revise now weak. Needs to do something here though, but unfortunately not going to be able to do it. It is going to be Scare going to take him out, and Acorn and Cold are Our Slappy Shores duos are still in this game, and Acorn and Cold look to reclaim the top spot.
They had a little bit of a blunder just in that final game of yesterday to start the game today. Quanti gets caught slipping. Cold and Acorn looking like they're trying to take over the dirt. The low ground is all theirs. They're trying to stay ahead of everybody else, looking back only when they have to. Just like D-Roller and Jackson, they know a siphon is imminent with only a few builds left to their name. Ariel's coming out, trying to make sure that he stays as high away from that low ground as possible, but down goes Booga. Now it's Peterbot to show us what you got, and he's got a shockwave to the front side of zone, trying to keep himself alive.
He's doing what he can here with the minimal resources that he has. He's going to have to find something here if he wants to stay in this game. And he's looking. My man, when this guy shoots, he don't miss. So the way he's looking for these shots is going to be huge. He's actually going to go for height. Wait, this is so risky for him to take out high ground and focus them. But sure enough, it does end up working in his favor, causing Yamzo a little bit of damage, but it's not going to be a good exchange as the Yamzo and Rise end up cleaning them up.
And we got 4 teams remaining here in the final moments, and they're all superstars of the region. And you can see Cold making sure to miss Acorn up. That challenge for the high ground is going to come through, but he flies right past, landing just a short shot on Yamzo. Acorn ends up in the wrong box. He's under pressure, but he's going to be able to survive. Cold making sure that these clutch plays he's known for is going to follow him to the FNCS finals.
Acorn and Cole must have heard Z talking that trash there in the pre-show, because they're coming back. Not only are they coming back, 5, 6, 7, 8 eliminations as they hold on to the final moments. Cold going to challenge fast there on height, then go for the low ground, takes out Jackson, and now it's a 1v1.
Ice in his veins. He called Cold for a reason. A huge shot on the match. Back to back, 10 eliminations. This man wants the title. He wants to go to the FNCS Global Championship.
They either go down early or they win the game with 10 plus elims. I don't know what is happening, but listen, honestly, they got some motivation here. They're getting that second win in day 2, and you love to see it.
I gotta be thinking right now, Cold. watching how that played down towards the end game, they got separated. It looked like it was bleak, but it ends up as 3 solos for the end game. Cole's got to be thinking, I got this. Acorn's got to be thinking, he's got this. Guess what? They snatched it away.
Yeah, and a big win to snatch away here, because remember, Peterbot and Booga, the other Slappy Shores team, they were competing still there in the final moments, but it was Acorn and Cold, the ones who won time after time yesterday out of Slappy Shores, are again winning it today.
And I got to give Pamso and Fatch credit as well, taking down a lot of the big names here in the lobby, not taking them down themselves, took them down low so another team could, but at the end of the day, the superstar Cold, it's just too much for anybody in this lobby at this moment. And we talked about the game number 7 blunder, game number 6 yesterday. That is long behind them. They're ready to take the next couple of games by storm.
They absolutely are, but look, there's going to be some shifts on the leaderboard, and the only people that can break them down for us is Zeke, Kelly, and Taco.
Cold. My gosh, this guy is on another level. Can I just say his ability to isolate players, just make them feel for like a moment they're safe, they're fine, and he's just waiting there with an edit, waiting for them to just drop that guard for a single moment, and he takes full advantage of that.
I think my favorite part was honestly right at the very end. He recognizes that there's a gold auto maven right for the pickings, manages to grab that, and that's actually what helps him solidify the final elimination blow to clutch out this win.
And I don't think anyone needs to question, oh, well, maybe this was because it went over to Slappy Shores. This was an advantageous zone. No, we saw Acorn and Cold time and time again yesterday have far polling west zones and still come out on top. Like you said, though, Cold with these calculated eliminations time and time again, going on the aggressive, even when he comes down to a solo player, not letting up against his opponents. Coming down, though, you do have to give props to Fatch and Pamsto. They had an incredible in game as well, but it did go to the way of the Slappy King.
Yeah, that's so crazy. Just watching that back, it's so clear that like Cole is almost forcing everybody to move where he wants them to move, right? He's like, hey, if you want this fight, you're gonna come down to this wall and you're gonna have to go for this shot, and he makes sure he's the one that walks away with it. Once again, they take over that number 1 spot, though.
I love that you're saying move and move, because Acorn and Cold moved down to 3 placement points after game 7. Now moving back up 3 placements again, holding back that first place spot.
They're just looking to reclaim their title and their position on the leaderboard. And whether or not they manage to hold on to it, I think if we continue seeing these kinds of repeat performances that Cold is clearly capable of, it's more than feasible to imagine that they're probably not going to sink much further than where we saw them initially in Game 7. And watching that bounce back in Game 8, they've again built up a little bit of a buffer zone.
And clearly, they are the stars of that last game. But can we talk about 2nd and 3rd place right now? These 2 duos continue to surprise us, even after day 1, where we weren't certain if they were a day 2 team. And here we have it, Bryson Chubbs sitting in 2nd, Reciprocal and Revised, the high ground kings that we had from yesterday, still doing good in 3rd.
But you know what's crazy in this game, actually, Kelly? We actually saw Yamzo and Rise. They were the ones on high ground this time. They're like, Revised, Reciprocal, no, we would like to challenge. Apparently in day 2, everyone's looking to play height.
And one of the best things that Yamzo and Rise did with this height is that when they noticed that the zone was pulling back towards the territories that they had high ground built, not necessarily them, but just builds in general that were going high up from 4th and 5th zones, they were able to connect to with using the shockwave hammers to launch themselves toward that front side of the zone. And they also made sure to cover their tracks. They backtracked and made sure to connect as well to where they were just at, just in case. You never know which way these zones are going to start moving. But I think that ultimately it starts with Peterbot actually chopping Yamzo and Rise in the first place.
You do have to give credit. Peterbot, we saw yesterday going down early a few times. It was Booga who had to come out with the solo clutches, and this time the roles were reversed. And like you said, we saw Peterbot trying to take down that high ground and even then trying to contest it, going for the shot, but unfortunately just falling a little bit short. But again, this is what we expected out of the duo yesterday, and they're finally showing up when they need it most.
And once again, back to Yams and Rise, right? Props to them. In that moment, if we're getting chopped, like that is a very scary situation because you don't know what's coming. You just know you're going down. For them, they're like, hey, there's someone right there. And then both of them are like, all right, let's deal with that as an issue, right? Being able to just react like that so fast in those high pressure situations is incredible.
And the problem is that Peterbot, again, he's kind of just forcing them to play down at everybody else's level. They had such a strong control over that high ground. We saw a couple of duos try to attempt to overtake it, but Yamzo Rise just instantly forcing them back to the mid ground, back to the low ground. And again, if Peterbot doesn't find that initial spot scan where he's like, hey, why are we letting these guys play up here in the first place? It was a little bit of sabotage, I think, on Peterbot's end that happened to just work out really well, because then Cold had an opportunity to try and challenge. And granted, he didn't actually close out anything there, but it's the fact that Yamzo and Rise were having to take shots in the first place.
Yeah, so absolutely insane. And I mean, even think about, like, my mind's racing, by the way. I think about, like, Kanata, right, in that situation as well earlier on in the mid game, being left as a solo rider saying, what am I supposed to do? The lobby, everyone is drawn. I've drawn the ire of everybody. It ain't gonna look good.
Yeah, it also didn't look too good for Trashy and Pump there. Finally having a bad game, and they've done an incredible job so far. But if these zones continue to pull that far south side, and if they don't have that contesting going on in their drop, seems like this might be it for them.
I did love, though, seeing Trashy there at the end, just kind of hiding, doing the most.
Yeah.
10 HP in a dream at that point.
Listen, those little things could make the difference, right? That time, it didn't, but maybe in the coming games, we could change up the strategy. Remember, we have to adapt if we want to be in that #1 spot, but we know you want more games. We do as well. So find your seats on the battle bus. This is game number 9.
Zeke says adapt. So adapt we shall, especially these competitors, depending on where you're at on the leaderboard, means oh so much. We're seeing it affect players already. You're down, you need to get eliminations and a high placement. But if you're high up on that leaderboard already, it almost makes you wonder, do you get aggressive? Do you stick to the plan? The question is up in the air.
There's so many questions up in the air, but for these storytellers, one is playing that or making that story a little bit better than the others. They're writing those words down a little bit stronger. It's Acorn and Cold as they finish such an incredible game 8, but 9 is here. The third game of the day, almost to the halfway point of day number 2, and here we go.
All it takes is one mistake, one misstep. We've already seen the leaderboard change game after game so far, including our first place players. Who's to say anything different will happen here yet again? Business as usual towards the Slappy Shores. Split between north and south. A little bit of surge probably meant the difference for Acorn and Cold, because on game number 7, the start of the day, they were down on surge. A huge switch up in that last game to make sure they were ahead of surge through and through. Oh my God, Pen, I'm ready for it. I am ready for this one. Blake and Bizzle, polarized users, the fight I've been waiting for.
I'm going to be honest with you. It does look like Bizzle was a little bit behind, but it doesn't matter because Blake's just too good. Polarized, though, going to be able to clean up Blake, but now Bizzle is going to be healthier. All he needs is one solid shot there with the burst, but no, he's not going to have the mats to protect himself. But now it is all down to this. One shot in either direction, but no, Polarized does find some health, and unfortunately for Bizzle, he's going to be down and out. This is going to be the first time of the day that they have lost this off-spawn battle.
A huge opportunity from Blake. Trades. But the two Mavens on the other side really changed the course right before our very eyes. Swirl and Eoxy, the team that kind of claimed this spot as theirs, pushing Chimp and Spade off this time around at the very least. Choosing to go a little bit more towards the east. Not too far, though. They can still trade for Surge as Eoxy and Swirl climbing up, at least trying to spot out where they're rotating through and just spots them all together.
Yeah, I mean, look, this fight has been interesting, especially on the day. Eoxy and Swirl, they have been the victors time and time again here in the farms. They've been taking out Spade and Chimp, but Spade and Chimp have a different strategy this time around. They're going to play a little bit more passive. You saw last time Spade was literally diving in, and this time that's not going to be the case. But speaking of diving in, is of course Nosh and not going to be able to take out Mason, going down super early in this game. Definitely not what you want to see if you're this team.
And you're seeing the drop spot switch ups all together. Glace and Mason once landing at Anvil Square, contesting Clicks and Donnie. Didn't like the look of their position after day number 1 on the leaderboards. Adaptation's key. That's going to be the storyline throughout the rest of these games. And for them, they're just trying to do just that, just like Nosh and Nut. They're trying to continue to adapt on the fly, change up their game plan that no one could really see them coming.
Yep, no one's going to be able to see this coming. There's so much here. Chubbs looking to keep it together. Aaron and Naves. Wait, they're getting involved on the fight with Aoxy, and Aoxy ends up going down.
Look at Chimp and Spade. You can see them on the mini-map. They hear all this action going down. It's almost like a green light, and they're trying to make it before it turns red. They realize the opportunity is now as Swirl goes down. That's going to be Chimp who steals that one away. Do they continue to progress onto this situation? Because in their heads, they're probably thinking the team that contested is weak.
I'm going to be honest. Look, Chimp heard this fight going down from a distance, but we can hear from a distance Chimp is excited. This is the turnaround that they needed as a duo. They needed someone else to get involved as Aoxy continued to win this fight against them, but it all changes now in match number 9 as Spade and Chimp have the upper hand.
Nair Naves was one of those teams that weren't having the best day #1 overall. When you look at the leaderboard, they're like, hey, if we want to climb up, even if not to take first, but to take even more cash in our pockets, we got to start getting eliminations. We got to start getting busy in this situation. Otherwise, everybody else in the lobby is going to get to bypass us up the leaderboard. And you can see Trashy and Pump going against Tasker and Clarity. And oh my, Pump with a huge shot to keep it going in their favor. These are the moments. With them going down rather early in that last game, they need to make up for it here.
And they're going to make up for it. If there's one team that knows how to be aggressive, make up points via elimination, it's going to be Pump and Trashy. These two have time and time again shown that they are incredibly talented when it comes to getting those eliminations. I mean, almost all day yesterday, they were leading the elimination leaderboard. So for them, they just need to do that yet again here in day number 2.
Talk about leading the leaderboard. Acorn and Cold, first name that comes to mind. You can see he's still setting records. It's Cold's first time with multiple victory royales in a single FNCS finals. He has multiple second-place finishes underneath his belt, a third-place finish in the international stage at the last FNCS Invitational. A win, Panda. A win is all he lacks, and let me tell you, I've never seen a young player of Fortnite try so hard not to just make some money, not to just make a name for himself, but become the best right before our very eyes.
The best. The conversation of who is the champion, who is the best of the region. This is the last chance to show that you're the best of NA East, because remember, this is the last of NA East. Now, we watch before these regions combine who will be your champions. So much still to be left to told. Now, look, we talked about Demon and Nick yesterday. When we did tune in with them, they were getting aggressive. But unfortunately, that wasn't really working out in their favor. It seems to be the same case here. They find themselves getting in these spots where they get caught off guard. Despite them thinking that they're starting to fight, they take the shots. And now these teams, guess what? They're not going to leave you alone. You took shots at them. Now they're only going to take shots at you as the focus comes through here for D-Roller and Jackson. Man, Jackson finishing strong last game and starting off strong here in this game.
Yep. Saw the struggles that Glace and Mason went through to start it off. He was just trying to hope his best to kind of get the reboot card, get Mason back in all together. And after getting those eliminations, they realize we can't stay in this position. We have to continue going. And you can see right now where they're going. They're grabbing that slap bear. You talk about the effects, the extra sprint that you're going to be able to get. That way you can save those charges for the shockwave hammer. And you can see how this one ended. They spotted out Glace, 2 different angles. He tries to go for, I got to give Glace that. At least he went down trying.
Hey, listen, sometimes you just got to go down swinging. That's how these fights go. Not every single fight is going to go in your favor, but for teams like Crackley and Co., they seem to be winning theirs early. But we tend not to see this team in the end game. And that's why they find themselves towards the bottom half of the leaderboard. And unfortunately, that's what they need to reevaluate. Is this aggression early on really worth losing those so valuable placement points later on?
That's something I think a lot of these players in this lobby are kind of going through, that mental game. Battling with themselves. Is this the right play? Is this the wrong play? Do I get aggressive here? Do I try to back up? Decisions are crucial. And with each passing game, they get even more important. You can see an augment that I actually haven't seen too much of. The tactical AR and the combat Shaka.
Yeah, that tactical armory augment is, honestly, it's underrated. Obviously, we see it a lot more in zero builds, I think, than we do here in the standard competitive mode. However, that doesn't mean it's not as valuable in these modes as well, especially when you're struggling to find a shotgun. It's going to be effective for you in the end game. And man, is the combat shotgun effective there in the end game?
And I kind of think of the idea that the tactical AR also has the red dot, so it's going to allow you to get Storm Surge. Not a ton, because it does use small ammunition. But Bryce and Chubbs over here towards Faulty splits. The zone continuing to push everybody towards the center. NPen and Chess Genius on the other side. Two dangerous duos here in a moment like this. So you have to be careful not to bite off more than you can chew at any situation. And with the Falcon Scout in his inventory, a rather unique inventory at that, just a Thunder Shotgun when it comes to actual weapons to fight with. Everything else, heals, resources, and the Falcon Scout to gather information. And that's exactly how they know the direct positions of both Chess Genius and NPen.
What is he cooking? What is going on in the mind of Chubbs? I mean, look, you see him playing a little bit further away than his teammate. Maybe he'll let his teammate go in first. He takes the chunk shots from a distance. I don't know, but when you don't have a follow-up weapon to convert this fight, it's going to be a tough one to take.
Dropping down low. He realized he can't get into a heated battle, box-to-box fight. He has to keep his distance. Piece control in a situation like this is going to be important. Pulling out the Falcon Scout, making sure to know exactly where NPen and Chess Genius at. It's not enough to know that they're above them. They need to know exactly where they're at, because there could be a chance for them to drop down. But Vivid has another plan for us. We're talking about Acorn and Cold and their road to the top. Vivid, how have they been doing so good?
Doing pretty good this game. Listen, they're looking to break the trend so far in day number 2. Seems after every single game, we've had a new lobby leaderboard leader. And to hold on to this game, they're already looking good. They got that zone pulling towards Slappy. Last game, when they did that, they got a lot of Storm Surge. That combined with the loot that they got, Shockwave Hammer already, picking up a purple Red Eye as well. It's going to be looking good for them holding on to that lead.
Thank you, Vivid, for letting us know that Chug Splashes are in the future of Acorn and Cold, because what was that? 9 Chug Splashes in the inventory? That is a beautiful way to start this game.
You can kind of see when he opened some of that loot, a Chug Splash popped out. He has Splash Medic. It's those clues. It's the little things, the little notes that I take to hope to take me to the top of the leaderboards one day. Maybe 2025, you'll see me compete in FNCS. I need that much time to practice, but Bryce and Chubbs, they don't need much time at all. A huge fight that we knew was inevitable between these two teams. The information and how close they were through and through. They know one player's weak. They're separated. They're trying to attack. The piece control is theirs. Bryce has him exactly where he wants him, but shockwaving himself out of danger for the moment. This one's going to continue, with Bryce still hot on the chase. Shots are going to fire in. It's going to fire back onto Bryce as well. The bait and switch to try to keep them alive. NPen goes up. He goes right back down and back into the box with Chess Genius to try to heal up. This is a fight that the longer it takes, those teams from Fault Splits might be like, what is that over there? Is that something that I have interest in? Which, yes, when it comes to Storm Surge.
I mean, look, that was a huge play for NPen, saving his teammate there in that crucial moment. As soon as he was dropped in the box and that player was hunting, Bryce lost sight of NPen.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that was at the cost of almost all of Bryce's health there in that moment. But for NPen, they're looking to keep this fight going. This fight, though, is taking quite a long time. The longer this takes, the more eyes it's going to draw, and potentially more of a third-party opportunity coming in the distance.
I'm even seeing on the minimap, there's another team in Faulty Splits gathering information with the Falcon Scout. We've seen a couple of teams do it early on from different regions, and it's really catching on. Everybody realizing the information that you gather is so vital for making it through every passage of the game, as NPen continuously trying to play aggressive. Piece by piece, it's getting under his control, but on the other side, his teammates under siege, under pressure. It becomes too much, but they fire back. Chess Genius with the knock onto Bryce, leaving Chubbs by himself, scrabbling for the answer, scrabbling for the way out. It does look like he's going to get atop the mountain, but is he going to be able to escape altogether?
Yeah, will he be able to escape? It's actually Chess there on top of it. They were not going to let him get away, and sure enough, Chubbs, one of our top 10 teams, is going to be out here early in game number 9.
Of even user, 25 below the damage threshold. We can see them looking on in the distance as the zone continues to pull towards the south portion of the map. They're hoping to gatekeep anybody still left wandering on the north. We continue to bounce up and down. that threshold, but User found a passage that they can go because they realize Storm Surge isn't the only thing we got to worry about. We got to make it to zone because yet again, another far pull for Aviv and Users.
This has been a tough day as far as rotations go for Aviv and Users. This is the second time they're having to pull far over to the east, but it's actually starting to pull a little bit more central, so it's not necessarily as bad as the other ones, but still a tough travel day for them. And obviously the soles on the shoes are running thin because they are starting to slow down here, but a team that's not slowing down is Trashy and Pump. They know how big these elimination points are going to be for them, especially with how far below the damage threshold they are, so they need it. They need it, but they want it too. And I think they're going to want it more than the other team. You see them continue to press forward. One knock comes through, but one knock also exchanged, and Pump and Trashy, in what a turn of events, are now out of game number 9.
Wow. A team that needed Surge and Pump and Trashy turns out to be their demise. And one man's trash is another man's treasure. Taking advantage of the situation, realizing I just have to play defensive, waiting for them to burst through the box. Fires the shot that mattered, putting that final nail in the coffin and keeping their own journey alive, just like Revised and Reciprocal. A team that I'm just excited to watch here towards the end games. The opportunities that they force, it's not even opportunities that come to them, the opportunities that they're creating to take over the high ground game after game, even though they haven't seen the most success, it's about that persistence in which they have.
Persistence is key in a situation like this, especially for Acorn and Cold, because persistence will win them that awesome spot there in the Global Championships, and that's what they're hunting for. This team is set, and the chemistry is off the charts here for Acorn and Cold. We've seen both players play with different teams in the past, but this one seems to be the one-way ticket to the Global Championship.
See, Shadow and Sphinx yet again. From one fight to the next. Peaks at the right time. Catching Vert slipping. Another team having their game dictated by lacking Storm Surge. You gotta make sure you get ahead early, or at least above the threshold, so that way you can focus on rotation after rotation. You don't get held out just like this. You see so many other teams in the distance. Muds and Degen gonna be one of them, trying to make their life as hard as possibly can be. But you talked about the team from Lonely Labs, Threats and Macwood. We saw them early on. Not have to worry about Surge, not have to worry about a contested drop. They looted up rather quickly and tried to rotate, because look at where this zone is versus where they started.
I mean, look, all these teams are really having to move here as this zone continues to pull in an interesting direction. It's going to be the first time we've seen it in this area, and unfortunate for Clix and Donnie. Donnie's going to go down. Clix now having to hold on here as so many other teams pressing him. He needs to switch to hard material. Yes, there it is. He cannot be wasting that wood, because you know as well as I do, Jacob, the more you try to hold on with wood, the more likely you are to get eliminated.
That's also one thing I learned from Vivid playing arenas, playing trio late game, is sometimes it's worse to sacrifice in your resources, build outward, create more real estate to work with. That way you can survive later in the game, because what good are those resources if they're in somebody else's loadout?
Yeah, I mean, if you're eliminated, you're not using builds. So use them or lose them. That's the best way to look at it. But for Booga and Peterbot, they're holding down, getting some big tags there in the distance. You see them having not an exceptional day number 2, but definitely a better start to the day than they had yesterday, which leads me to believe that there is very little chance they qualify outside of the top 10 at the follow, or at the end of all of this. But they don't want just top 10. No, Jacob, they want top 2, top 1. They want to walk away with that spot in the Global Championships. They want to walk away with the majority of the prize money. There's so many things that they want, but will they be able to achieve it?
Yep. Doesn't matter what you want. You got to earn it. You got to deserve it at the end of the day. You see Ed is down. Miro, probably one of the more prominent solo players that we've seen in Fortnite history. Is he up for the challenge? That's the question we really got to ask ourselves. Probably the farthest to go before he's in zone. Also as a solo, trying to use as much of the big bush bomb and the bush warrior augment to try to get himself to 100 effective HP and shields. That way his rotation doesn't come with too much damage and too much resources to be used overall.
Yeah, expending a lot of resources here is not a good look here at this part in the game. You know how much you need it in the end game, and That's what teams like Pamsu and Fatch are going to do. They're going to try to take shots. They're going to try to get involved here and try to use as many materials as they can to get the fight, because they know how much that refresh is going to provide for them. And that's what you see here, them going for that refresh. It does look like they're so close to getting elimination onto one, but another team now getting involved here. This just makes it tougher and tougher for Pamsu and Fatch to finish this off. And now Fatch taking a ton of damage and going down. Pamsu, as a solo player, will he be able to clutch it up?
It looks like he's just trying to disengage from the scenario. Build a box for Fatch. Try to find some sort of safety, but in comes Chimp, in comes Spade. Everything comes crumbling down. You add in Scare from the distance, who finishes off with Refresh and the Siphon. Not going to be able to get any of those mats. There goes Chess Genius coming in like a candy-stealing baby.
He literally ran in. Oh, I'm going to take this. Peace. I'm out. And immediately getting out of that situation. Honestly, good on him. But for Scare, he's holding it down as a solo player. It's funny how these events transpire. You see Fatch and Pamsu looking to take advantage of Scare being a solo player, and then all of a sudden, another team gets involved. Fatch goes down, and now we're here. A 1v1 with Scare and Pamsu, but with other teams looming in the distance, I don't think either one of them are going to be able to make it out.
Ooh, almost ends up in the box. The Fatch has just a couple more seconds to try to get above the threshold, but he gets shut down altogether. A huge shot by Pamsu, trying to use the distraction all around to stay alive here as a solo. Chances of getting Fatch back in are almost slim to none. As Cold goes down, this is great for everybody else in the lobby. We talked about how much of a gap they have built themselves in game after game up until this point. Just 14 below. And he's continuously falling, and he doesn't get it off in time. The splash is not going to be able to be used. Down goes Acorn and Cold. Up goes everybody else. This is their chance to rise to the top of the leaderboard.
The biggest threat to Acorn and Cold in this lobby is not the players, but it is the Storm Surge. This is the second time we've tuned in with them today where they have gone down at the hands of Surge. And honestly, you got to get a handle on this plan. Despite them being in first place now, that doesn't mean they're going to be able to hold on to it, especially with the way they're not able to get this damage here in game 1 and 3 on the day. So he's going to have to tune up and change. But for a team that is starting strong today is Impen and Chess Genius. Interestingly enough, this team hasn't done too much or used as many materials as I was anticipating. They're definitely lower than they should be going into this. However, based on what we were watching earlier, I thought more would be gone.
No, I think you're right. You're just missing a little piece of that story. They did use all the resources, like you said, but you saw them snatch away everybody else's loot coming in at the opportune time to try to take advantage. That's why they are at the count that they are at this current moment. And you can see the zone now. We're going to be pulling a little bit to the northeastern portion, back into faulty splits. The different elevation changes, if you're not ready for it, could be drastic, because down goes Rise. Yamso here trying to save the day, but the pressure for Quad Chalk might be a little too much, and that's why you see the splashes getting dropped left, right, and center. Even though Yamso is at full HP, he's just trying to buy Rise more time before he goes down altogether. Something is better than nothing, but he realizes that one's going to be near impossible. I have to keep going. But that's something, if I'm Rise, him going down, I got to have a boast of confidence, because Yamso, his story, he came up as one of the best solo players out of nowhere.
Yeah, absolutely did, but Yamso here, an incredible fighter, and with 13 chug splashes in the inventory, he's looking to take this fight head on. Now players though, like Infinite and Chess Genius, they're doing the same thing, getting into boxes left, right, and center. Now challenging Macwood here for the throne. Will he be able to take him out here, as they are both weak? One shot could turn this all around and get some much needed eliminations here for Chess and Infin. But man, this has not been a slow day for them.
Oh, zone pulled back. I was wondering why they weren't shockwaving, because they realized they had the spot that they wanted already. Kanata and Ager's trying to do the same, lacking some resources and mats. You can see the heals that he had on him very, very early on in the game. Those are done and gone. And you can see, instead of taking altercations, trying to get the refresh, he knows those opportunities will come later on in the game, so he's just trying to stay ahead of the zone, so that way he can look back at a Modus Dotus and pop some of the most important shots that he will fire in this game. As Revise, as a solo, the pressure is on so many players who lost their duo moments ago.
Revives Reciprocal not finding that same groove they saw in day number 1. They're taking height in the first 3 games, but unfortunately in this round of events, they're not being able to find it. But now Okus finding himself towards the high ground yet again, but not finding success in the high ground to date. But this is their chance to turn that around, to change the tide of that story, because they can hold that high ground even for just a moment longer. But no, they're pushed off, and now they need to play something together and finish this game strong.
That was Serbsky and Rapid who took away the high ground, tossing them down low as possibly can be. Everybody trying to get into the zone. Revise has something to work with, especially with that shockwave hammer. We called him a dark horse, and this is his chance to really burst everybody's game. And oh my God, NPen and Chess Genius go down. There were some of the players causing so much chaos in this lobby, which leaves everything else up for grabs.
For Yamzo, he just needs to hold on. He needs to stay alive here as a solo player and do something with his time, especially with so many other solos up in this game. You see there's 10 teams remaining, but only 14 players in the lobby. That tells you most of these players are solos here, folks. So for the duos, you got to take advantage of it. But for the solos, you just got to hold on.
Taking high ground at the perfect moment from one zone to the next. Serbs and Rapid trying to hold on. Yamzo using the big bush bomb as a distraction. No match to his name. A siphon has to come through. That's his chance. He's going to be able to get it. Can he get out as Jackson gets dropped, getting tagged up from the sky, goes forward in the zone just a little too far. He gets taken out. Serbsky's going to reap the rewards. 4 more points to his total.
4 more points for him, but it could have been so many more points if he was able to just hold on a little bit longer. Remember, those placement points are going to be huge here in a situation like this. That's why you see Revise staying alive. One of our only top 10 teams still in this here, as Revise holds it down as a solo player. His impact as a solo is going to be massive in a game like this, especially considering where they're at in the leaderboard.
You can see him, spots that player, trying to drop it down low. That was a great opportunity, but the 2v1 is just too much to overcome as we get into our top 3 teams, as Dubs and Xcept somehow, some way, have stolen away the high ground at the perfect moment. The other full duo left is at the ultimate low. That's Qual, that's Jack, with Serbsky being that meat in the middle. He once held the high ground, he always held the high position. Now he holds on to 3rd place as he gets taken out of the lobby.
Qual and Jack look to finish it off strong here. Hammer play to knock down Xcept. Dubs sent into the storm. Qual looking to connect the shot. They're exchanging quick. Dubs goes down. It's all up to Jack. Will he be able to take on the fight there with Xcept? Despite his teammates still being in it, every shot's gonna count here. Will he clean it up? And he does, as Jack and Qual walk away with the 9th victory royale of the grand finals.
9 victory royale of the finals, like you said, and they did it with 11 eliminations. That's 44 points off eliminations alone. They're trying to close the gap as much as possible. They're saying, why not us? Why can't we take home the Axe of Champions?
They heard us talking about all these other teams, and they said, hey, where's our story arc? Oh, game 9? Yeah, it's right now.
You see the elimination on Serbsky, moving him into 3rd place in that game. And the way they closed it out, a missed shot by Dubs almost did cost him everything, even though Xcept tried to go up and steal away the high ground. At that point, it's just over. It's too late. Quad Jock, they held onto the low ground. Even if he had all the mats in the world to keep building himself back up, they had the shockwave hammers to force him down into their hands regardless. A huge opportunity for them to gather their points and a huge moment to build that confidence.
It is. This is huge for Jack and Qual. Could turn things around for them in this tournament and be a momentum shift that they much so needed. But we got to see where they lie on the leaderboard. And 3 people that we know can take care of you is, of course, Zeke and crew.
Thank you guys so much. Game number 9. The lobby's had enough. They've said, hey, you guys all at the top, you know what? You're all solos now. We are fighting back, and we're going to make sure we can close the gap that you have created for us, because this was a game of solos.
This was definitely an instance of solos. And another thing to note is that even though Quat and Jock, they did a phenomenal job working from the low ground, this low ground capability, I think, came as a result of Yamzo and Rise for the first time not having that total control of the high ground and kind of limiting what was actually happening underneath.
I think also a part to their success, probably the biggest key here, was that Falcon Scout. We saw it yesterday, a few teams using it around Zone 6, Zone 7, but if I'm not mistaken, Jack and Qual were using it around Zones 8, which in itself is a little bit dangerous because you're not allowed to move when you're using that. So quickly popping it, getting an understanding of where everyone is, which when you're on the low ground is incredibly valuable.
Maybe that's some of the secret tech, right? All these players have saying, hey, we have these things we're going to use in grand finals to try and find that #1 spot. For them, though, translates to a victory royale, at least in game number 9. We now look at the standings to see how things are going. My, oh my. Acorn and Cold. How do we stop this in just How do we stop these guys? They're so good.
This is a pretty stubborn leaderboard as far as the top 5 is concerned. But again, even though Acorn and Cold, they didn't actually manage to make it as far into this one as they would have liked. But again, they have a little bit of that buffer zone. But pay note to Yamzo and Rise. We saw so many of our teams from the top 10 get elimed early on that it opened the doorway for them to clinch out for moving up 3 placements into that 3rd place position. So Trashy and Pump, they've got their work cut out for them.
Yeah, with these zones, it's a little rough for them, but a team that it's not rough on is Kanata and Agers. Obviously, these eastern zones definitely seem to be favoring their position right here. And from early on, Kanata just going for these long-range red-eye beams, absolutely decimating players and making sure that they're staying above the storm surge threshold.
It's just so tough when so much congestion is actually taking place inside of these lower layers that even if you're trying to challenge a box directly in front of you, you don't know if someone's going to be pushing in on your backside at the same time because the shockwave hammers as well, destroying so many of those builds in the mid ground. It'd just be really difficult to work through.
Again, this lobby, they're just saying, we've had enough. We don't want this anymore. This is now an all-out brawl. Now, for just a moment, let's take a step back. We actually have a member from our community who's gonna be standing by. We're gonna get to talk with them. It is none other than Vanessa. How's it going?
I'm great. How are you guys doing today?
Fantastic. The games are absolutely wild. Vanessa, wanted to take a moment here to catch up with you. Obviously, you were invitational, got to be interviewed there on stage. Now, with that kind of in mind, we're going to get the run back, but this time in the form of a global championship. How do you feel like these events will compare?
I think just because with the creation of NA Central and the combination of East and West, there are going to be way different duos that form on the North American server. So we're all used to seeing EU on top. So I'm excited to see how those different duos could take the top of the leaderboard at FNCS Global.
Definitely something to keep an eye out for. But Vanessa, we know that you're a pretty fierce competitor yourself. And given the fact that you participate in so many tournaments and events, what's been some of your favorite aspects of playing versus watching, for instance, Grands today?
I'm a very competitive player, and I know I'm not a pro, but I love seeing how I can improve, how me and my duo can improve, and comparing it to different chapters, different seasons as well. And I love watching FNCS because it just helps me as a player.
And we've definitely seen duos today improve as well. But if there's a duo that stands out to you that you think can walk away in first place, who do you think it is?
I hate to root for any one team because I'm happy just to watch and honestly cheer for anyone because it's so exciting. But I think just to see Revise and Reciprocal on top because they're really just switching up the leaderboard right now.
Yeah, well, listen, I'm gonna fight you on one point. You are a competitive player in all of our hearts, okay? Don't you forget it.
Thank you.
Now, for all the fans out there, Vanessa, where can they find you?
At Vanessa BTW on Twitter is where I'm usually at.
There you go. Well, hey, Vanessa, thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of the competition, and we'll see you later.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Of course, of course. Such an awesome time. We can't forget, we're still here in the grand finals. We only have 3 games left to go, and after 3 games, we will know who walks away with an Axe of Champions, and of course, a guaranteed spot going to global champions or global champs later.
And the money.
And the money, of course. There's so much accolades, all of it. I think I'm just ready to get back into the action. I know I want to keep talking. There's so much that we can continue to break down and dissect, and we'll have time for that. Don't worry. But right now, we have to get back into the games. Game 10 is upon us. 3 games left. It is now or never for these duos. So let's get back to it.
This is the halfway mark of the day. The final 3 opportunities for these teams to climb the leaderboard. Who will walk away the victor of the day? Who will walk away with some of that prize money? And who will be the first of NA East to go to the Global Championships? Well, let's find out here as game number 10 gets ready to go underway.
Forgot the last champion for the NA East region. That's something that a lot of these players, it's more than just bragging rights. It means so much for their history and everything that they fought for to get to this point. But as you said, game number 10 starts right now. We're ready to get this show on the road and keep the momentum going. I'm not ready to slow down. Let's just keep it. Let's keep it moving and grooving.
As the history continues to be made here for the final NA East Grand Finals, we see these teams dispersing across the map. No changes so far here. To my knowledge, as Acorn and Cold are going to be the first ones to land over here at Slappy, and they're looking for instant shots onto Peterbot and Booga, and they're going to be able to connect just over 50 damage.
Good shots from Cold. Even like solidifies that they're not going to get pushed by Peterbot and Booga even more, and you can kind of already see the split. The drop not to their liking. Blake and Biz are going to back off of this one, give up the loot that everyone's fighting for early on in the game. So everybody getting that equal opportunity to really fight back, but when it comes to differential and loot right out of the gate, you got to give a little bit of an upper hand, at least to Polarized and users. And you can almost see how confident Blake and Bizzle is, or lack of their loot, because they're just trying to rotate and get even more. They don't want to fight this off-spawn exchange with what they have on hand.
Yeah, you got to use what you can find here in the early game for a fight like this, and you got to take it quick. It looks like Bizzle and Blake are actually opting to move away from it, and that's probably the right play. Take what you can and get out of there. Run for the hills, as you don't want to take an early game fight like that that is not guaranteed in your favor. But a fight that is guaranteed potentially in Aoxy and Swirl's favor is the one against Chimp and Spade, as they have won time and time again over here near this farm area.
Oh, huge flank coming through. Chimp doesn't see it coming. Swirl takes full advantage, but doesn't get the knock just yet. Giving Chimp a second chance at life. That's not something you want to give any of these players in the lobby. Still trying to break through and bulldoze his way into the cover. Third party coming in. Aoxy's taking a huge shot himself. Chimp goes down. This is the chance for the 2v1. You immediately see Aoxy try to disengage. He no longer needs to take the 1v against Spade now that Chimp went down and Swirl won his.
It looks like Aoxy actually ends up going down. Spade's going to be able to clean this up here. And another team looming in the distance looking to get involved here. Spade needs to be careful, because all it takes is one moment for him to get caught off guard, and he is going to be out of this, as now Aoxy's card has been picked up and Swirl has decided to disengage.
Almost makes you wonder, did Swirl see Spade up there? Or did he see Chess Genius and N-Pen climb up that mountain? They're both going to be able to escape for now, as Spade is under pressure. Him and Chip struggles, likely to continue if he doesn't have some sort of a miracle on his side. He needs that other team to close the distance, but not soon enough. He goes down altogether. The sneak attack comes in from Aaron and Naves. So from one fight to the next, N-Pen and Chess Genius better be ready.
I don't think Aaron and Naves are ready for this one, because Chess Genius and N-Pen have been winning this fight time and time again. And while they think they might have an advantage in this, both are still very, very healthy. Looking at the way that Aaron and Naves are taking this fight, they're looking to just pressure on the side, quickly pinching them together. Great play as a duo, great chemistry there to know that, you know what, I'm going to take the north side of these builds, you take the south side, and let's just push them, pinch them, and cause pressure until eventually we get one to crack.
Catching N-Pen slipping. A huge beam gonna land. One's gonna go down. Chess Genius under pressure. No builds and resources to really defend himself. After a phenomenal game number 9 from N-Pen and Chess Genius, they go down a little early, giving themselves much time to think about what they need to switch up.
Speaking of going down, the zone has gone down to the very far south side of the map.
Wow.
This has probably been the furthest south zone that we have seen in this FNCS Grand Finals. So huge for the teams that are landing towards the southern part of the map. They aren't going to have to do much running, but for teams like Clicks and Donnie, they're going to need to start moving and moving fast here. Unfortunately for them, though, Donnie's going to go down. Clicks fans rise. He needs all the support he can here as a solo player to keep this thing going, as Mason just getting back with his teammate and just trying to heal up.
Immediately sliding in. He's the one with the splashes and the heals. Donnie just trying to go up and over, give Clicks information, who takes a massive shot, trying to back down, defend himself, but it's not going to be enough. Lace and Mason not only take down Donnie, but they take down the full duo of him and Clicks.
Tough day in the office for Clicks and Donnie. They had a pretty good day one. We saw them in the qualifying weeks do exceptionally well. And that's what happens. Anytime you take on a grand finals with a new teammate, there's some chemistry to build over time. And you guess what? Maybe they're just using this major one as an opportunity to build some chemistry here together and pursue even better results there in major 2 and 3.
You can already see the rotation being used, aerialist coming out, Trashy shockwaving them both forward, Pump, Pop in the glider to try to give themselves even more to work with. You can see they both have shockwaves hammers, increasing their probability for success in this situation. Cold and Acorn, we talked about their struggles when it comes to Storm Surge They're trying and hoping because you see how far south the zone has actually come. They're waiting to see if anybody else from that north side of zone is either going to try to go to the eastern side, which some would say is the slow side of zone, and they're going to try to trap them there. Get their surge before they continue themselves moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, look, honestly, if I'm cold in Acorn, I'm moving now. I don't want to give Bugha and Peterbot any kind of time to come towards me. I know that this is not a fight that we were winning in the qualifying weeks. So if I'm them, I'm moving. I'm moving and grooving because zone's pulling as far south as it is. It's going to cause Bugha and Peterbot to have to move in your direction. So when you are rotating, you also need to try to get as far to the dead side as possible. Start getting closer to that water on the south side because, again, you want to avoid all these other teams rotating on top of you. However, we have seen them struggle with surge, so maybe they do have to kind of stay on the edge and hope that they can connect some shots on unsuspecting players rotating forward.
Only time will tell, especially with such a drastic change in the zone this time around. Pamso and Fatch, one has his tower in the sky, the other one trying to meet up and catch up to their position, but he gets caught out altogether. That's Noxie and Okus. They're gonna be able to take him down. And you can see Pamso just trying to escape altogether. He's trying to live as long as possible. And it is quite early in the game, Panda. So, I mean, if he could somehow lose Noxie and Aokus in some sort of cat and mouse game, he could circle back, try to get the reboot before it's too late. If they let him.
If they let him. That's the thing, right? Look, these teams, when they realize you're a solo player and they know for a fact that you are, they're going to continue to hunt you. They know that you're at a disadvantage. And so, for a team like Okus and Noxie, they're not going to slow down. They're going to continue to try to push Pamsu. And that's what you see here as Okus drives the vehicle directly towards Pamsu, causing a ton of damage onto him. But Yamzo also not too far away, looking to get into this fight too. This could be dangerous for these players.
Dangerous? That's the name of the game at this stage. Game 10. Anybody's a threat. Waiting to strike. Including this man right here. I'm just waiting for that pop-off moment. Classic Kanata to really show up and shine bright. Him and Agers having a phenomenal day number 1. Some struggles here, trying to mimic that here in day number 2. But we got Kelly from the stage to the mid-game, linking it all together for us.
Thank you so much, Jacob. When we look at the duos, we don't just look like what they can do together, but what they can do individually. Acorn looting up here and rotating over to more Oathbound chests. And then, of course, Cold with the roles reversed here, taking a few early shots onto Peterbot and Bugha, and then looking south and taking some more shots there. Clearly going to have a great end game, or let's see if they do.
I think they will. I think with Kelly Link coming in and blessing them in the mid game, they're definitely going to have a better shot there for the win. You already know, but for Chubbs and Bryce, they need to continue to connect some big shots. One of the things that they were lacking before, they're not lacking now, and that is a secondary weapon in the inventory for Chubbs. Good change here. For me, at least, I definitely think that's the play.
And honestly, you can see with one elimination, as we tune into Miro and Ed, you see Cam and the mini-map at that. He's by himself. Jiggly Flopper getting lost along the way. And from Miro and Ed, they can do one of two things. They can play aggressive, stay long in this zone, but we know how far south it pulled. So they can continue to rotate, get themselves that spot in zone, and just try to look back. That player, Cam, has to follow them sooner or later, but it seems like they're even going deeper in zone, trying to go back for loot that they know is there, scavenge themselves, and try to play to some slow side of the zone. I'm saying that loosely because with a far south pull and where they're currently located, I don't know if they're going to reach it.
Look, I know that Frenzy Fields is the only POI in the zone, but the real frenzy is happening outside of the zone as so many players need to rotate into circle. You see struggles coming from players like Peterbot and Bugha who find themselves on the edge and need to start moving. There's so much distance between them and where they need to be. If they don't start moving fast, they could find themselves getting stuck out.
Now, I was talking to my good old friend, Kinch, throughout each and every one of these days leading up to the finals, and he's letting me know some of the roles for Acorn and Cold. We know Acorn's the IGL, and it's showing in the stats. Over 60% of the builds in the late game comes from Cold, while 65% of the damage in the late game comes from Cold. I meant Acorn on the first one. The builds in the IGL comes from Acorn, but the damage all comes from Cold. The stats show it, and we see it happen right before our very eyes. It's just, can anybody else kind of mimic that chemistry, mimic really playing into the roles in which makes a team great?
Yeah, a team that can and definitely will here today is Reciprocal and Rise. Vanessa was rooting them on there in the mid-game interview, or the mid-competition interview, saying that that was the team she was looking to win it all. And they're so close. They're on the cusp of potentially walking away with it. So it'll be interesting to see if that actually plays out for them. But a team that's going to be fighting on the edge here is Aviv and User. This team, not strangers to take in these fights in the zone.
Yeah. Just like the LV says, he's a lethal villain here in this lobby. Him and User really trying to prove to be one of the top teams here on NA East before we converge into the central region for the first time ever. They're getting just enough surge to stay above the threshold and really have to focus on their rotation. See apples, blue mushrooms, splashes, using everything they can get their hands on to make sure they can save those chug splashes to the end. Instant heals are probably one of the best type of heals here in Fortnite.
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree with you there, but for Aviv and Users now, it's the time to move. And if you hear that hammer going off, you're going to start using a hammer of your own, because a lot of players are outside of zone, and Aviv knows that. That's why he's turning around, and he's going to start taking shots at some of these other players that still need to rotate. And with Nosh being, Nosh being as weak as he was, it could have been an easy pickup, and sure enough, it was for User as Aviv looked there in the distance. But Threat and Playify kind of competing against one another here all the way out into the water. That is a tough place to find yourself.
Yeah, they realize with that far south zone, they don't want to go directly in through the center. They know everybody else is going to have to force themselves into that same rotation, so they're trying to use the boats, use the water to try to rotate around all the danger, put themselves directly into the mid game. Reciprocal as a solo, 357 above. As a solo, that Storm Surge means so much more as a duo, because you could split up, you can get the angles, you can find some shots, but as a solo, it's all you. The pressure is on your shoulders, as Reciprocal just switching through every weapon in his inventory just to get any bit of scraps when it comes to the Surge, because look at it already moving right before our very eyes. There's never a true feeling of safety.
Look, in day number 2, you see the teams that maybe had an extra spark in day 1 and that spark fizzled out come to the second day, but then you're going to see new teams rise into their place. And Reciprocal and Revise, while they still find themselves in the top 10, I feel like that spark is beginning to fizzle out just a bit, so they need to do something to reignite what they have going on, or they'll find themselves falling way too far out of the leaderboard.
Yeah, it just comes in these moments in the mid game, going into the end game. They expend a lot of resources and mats. As Trashy is just trying to figure out, what is the game plan? What do I do here as a solo? Do I rotate first? Do I rotate late? Kanata and Agers looking towards the back. They got their plan. Do not let this team in. We are going to be the gatekeepers. We will not let you pass. And on the other side, the team that is in pain right now, that's Polarized and Users. Users is already down. You can see Agers getting the credit for that in the feed. And that just goes to show that he has to leave his teammate there. There's no way you can be a hero here in this situation without costing yourself so many resources, mats, heals, everything, including positioning at the end.
Yeah, you can't be giving up some of the most vital things to your game plan and strategy this early. And unfortunately for them, they are going to be able to give that up. But for Rise and Yamzo, they're not giving up anything except some extra medium ammo to the dome of some of these unsuspecting players as they rotate around them. And Rise and Yamzo know how to get Surge. I feel like this is a team that really hasn't struggled as much with Surge as we've seen maybe even in Acorn and Colt. But they're not finding their groove in the late parts of the game, and I think that's where they're really falling behind.
Need a little more juice on that throw next time, Rise. Landing right outside of the box of Yamzo, making him prone to probably taking some damage. But hey, Rise is probably one of the best IGLs in the current meta. Can't fault him too much as Ruga and Peterbot trying to have the late game heroics. Day number 2, it's all on the line if they want to take that first place. And flying high in the sky, they take down Pam. So a 1-2 punch from Booga. And that was a huge find. Not only the loot, but when it comes to the Storm Surge, now they're 124 above the threshold.
Look, man, I said it in the pre-show. I'm going to say it again right now. Bad. The GOAT. Booga, man, no matter where he places in this competition, still in my eyes, the GOAT of Fortnite.
A hungry GOAT. He's ready to get fed more eliminations, more placement points. He wants everything. Just like Nasid and Flo, they're just trying to survive. A huge knock down on the crazy GGs. clarifying that slow rotation towards the outside. You got to imagine what that's doing to the Storm Surge game, probably forcing them into this exchange. But that's neither here nor there, because that's Bowen and Austin is going to come out on top. You see the launch pad going down. They're going to have to try to protect it if that is their only rotation. That's going to be the question here. Does Austin have a shockwave hammer? Because if that launch pad goes out, it might be the team to follow.
Yeah, I mean, for Nostin and Flo, I think they need a big game. They need a win. Fortunately for them, they know how to get that win. We watched it in Surge Week happen in game number 2. So for them, game 10 might be the one that they walk away victorious. But Reciprocal still finding himself here as a solo player. Not only that, but he's holding it down. He hasn't really had to overcome much adversity despite the limited resources that he has. He's still survived and carried on this far into this game.
Yeah, that's what we saw in Booga. One of the final games of the day yesterday. Peterbot going down to Canada Agers. It was Booga who outlasted so many other teams to give them hope going into day number 2. Why not give your teammate hope going from game 10 to games 11 and 12, closing out the day, just like Bryce and Chubbs. Trying to put 10 toes down when it comes to their positioning on the leaderboard. Hold on for dear life. This is going to be a roller coaster of emotions to really close out the day. We've already had so many different lead changes, and that includes every placement below first as well.
That it does. But Acorn and Cold, these two, I feel like literally live by the name Cold. They can be hot one game, cold the next. And so for this duo, they need to figure out what the strategy is. They've been struggling quite a bit to find their way into zone. They've been struggling a bit with Surge, but despite all of that, they still find themselves at the top of the leaderboard. Imagine if they corrected just those few little things in their game plan, there'd be no one that could touch them.
No one at all. That's something, you know, I think I can get behind. But there's so many contenders. There's so many teams, the superstars that we know about, the ones we don't. Players trying to reclaim that former glory. Death and Tahi, 305 above. They got their spot on the edge of the zone. So many other teams close by. Got to be careful. That's why they're both peeking for information through the cone. Muzz and G-Gen, they got the information they wanted early on, and now they're trying to put it to use. Pressuring Bert. He's going to go down to Jackson. Walker's trying to stay alive, but the tables have turned. They have now become the focus in the lobby for a few short seconds. And just like you said a few games ago, you build in wood, that makes you a target.
Yeah, looking at the way that this is set up, Muzz and Dejan should be able to survive this. Yeah. I think the pressure will subside as we're seeing now, and they should be able to hold on to the team, or player rather, that might not be able to survive this pressure. Unfortunately, is Reciprocal. He is going to go down there as he just didn't have the resources to maintain any kind of control in this game. But when it comes to control, Yamzo and Rise are holding it down.
They're like playing hot potato with the focus of the lobby. They focused out Revise. They took out a couple of those other teams. Now they became the focus. Death still under pressure on the other side. Yamzo and Rise just watching it all before they make their next rotation. They say, you guys are bigger. Busy scrambling for surge, scrambling for damage. We're going to use that as a distraction to try to get as close to zone as possible. Staggering themselves just a few inches short of their spot inside of a bush. Trying to give their position unknown. That way they can peek in and out of their builds to try to pop some shots and try to hold some players back.
Yeah, they want to hold players back, but there's only so much you can do, especially when people have their eyes set on you. The last thing you want to do is overextend, get yourself in a sticky situation. Speaking of sticky situations, it's Jackson's shot sticking to Moo there, and unfortunately Moo is going to end up going down. Now he's going to go for the full elimination there as his teammate tries to make something of it. Shooting back there is Braids just from above, but they are going to get full elimination on the Moo. He wants the material, he wants the refresh, and unfortunately it just doesn't look like Jackson's going to be able to get it.
On the other side though, Braids got serves and Rapid trying to peek in. He probably heard it at the last second. That's why you see him go up a few layers. Doesn't want to get caught off guard yet again. Jackson gets tagged up. Good thing D-Rollers there kind of stabilize themselves in the position. Seeing Kanata by himself, a little bit of a surprise. Ager's going down, but at least he did enough. He had 2 eliminations before getting knocked. 409 above the damage threshold, giving Kanata all the tools in the world to work with.
So much to work with. Listen, a lot of these teams have the toolbox, right? They have everything they need to win the game, but unfortunately, mistakes and circumstance are what find themselves dropping before that victory royale slot shows itself to these teams. So for them, they just need to continue to use those tools wisely and to the best of their ability, especially in these high pressure situations as Chubbs and Bryce holding it down here from high ground and looking to reconnect and make it strong as this moving zone begins.
Tagging the player up, hitting surfs, getting rapid into toes, seeing that they have no shields. The patience right there, because some players might have jumped on that as an opportunity to get a siphon as a refresh. They realize they don't need it. They're just ready to go from one zone to the next. Shockwave hammers galore. And for a lot of players, it's the only way around the map. Some of them might be low on resources and mats as Yamzo and Rise spot out Larson. They see him as a solo. That could be an opportunity to go and try to get that siphon, one more team out of their way for this end game.
Listen, one more to go down, and it spells big points for them, but Kanata still holding down as a solo player. Those chunk flashes continue to find his way into the inventory of Kanata and keeping him alive further and further into this game. But now he's challenging this solo player in the box. But this is a big challenge. If he loses this, and he does, he could find himself dropping outside of the top 5.
Such a great start to day number 1. Things not looking his way, but that's a man that can come back from the depths and still achieve greatness. You see Booga having some sort of claim to the high ground, but only for so long. He's going to have to rotate a few pacings in. Peterbot probably staggering himself back, trying to find eliminations. Cold and Acorn, they're comfortable where they're at, but they're not comfortable when it comes to resources. They're going to have to figure out where they're going to get the siphon, where they're going to get the refresh to come in at before it's too late for them and their lead.
Listen, you speak of greatness, and you see him up there on the high ground. Booga getting an elimination there in the feed onto Chubbs, but Rise and Yamzo also getting elimination there onto Nani. So much is happening in this game as it continues to break down. Acorn and Cold, though, doing a phenomenal job of playing together. This is when you see Acorn and Cold at their best, is when they are hip to hip. Acorn building out, putting themselves in the right spots. Cold picking up the eliminations, getting the damage onto these players. That is what makes them such a strong duo.
You can see Acorn leading the way, just like Rise and Yamzo on the other side, but your king for the high ground get knocked down momentarily. Do they have enough to hold on? But down goes Acorn. Cold's gonna be left by himself. But for some reason, Panda, I don't feel a lick of worry.
I don't either. Listen, Cold, like you said before, is the one that's putting down all the damage, and it doesn't matter if Acorn's down, because Cold's gonna hold it down, potentially walk away with it. But now, finding himself ahead of the front of zone, he needs to be careful, though. Booga and Peterbot on height will be a problem, not just for them, but for all the players in this lobby, because when they have height, they know how to control it.
There he goes, finds one. A little bit of mats to work with. I don't know how he does it. Call him a magician. He makes magic happen every time he pops up on screen. Looking to make it again. A player's going to be right above. He's going to go ahead and bypass it, landing a good shot onto Peterbot back to back as he gets the knock on the Booga as well. Everything comes crashing down. He almost makes magic happen once more, but every magic act comes to an end sooner or later.
And the elimination onto Booga actually does convert before he goes down, but with Peterbot cleaning him up, it looks like they're still going to be the champions, at least in this game of Slappy Shores. But with Swirl and Aoxy still in it, they need to hold down and be careful. 3 HP is not a lot to work with, especially in the final moments of the game. But here it is, folks. Here it all comes down to it. 6 teams remain, 5 teams remain. And these players are dropping like flies here, because that is what happens when the ninth zone begins.
For Aoxy and Swirl, this is going to be a miracle victory if they somehow come on top. One of the busiest fourth parties that came in to start off the game. Joji has a claim to the high ground. He gets knocked. Yamzo said that's mine, snatches it away, sends him down to the low, and he's going to follow up. Another shot. Danger Hero trying to keep Joji alive, but it's not enough for the likes of Yamzo.
The conversation needs to be, is Yamzo one of the greatest? He continues to do things as a solo player no one else can, and this lobby continues to show that story. Will Yamzo and Rise clean it up on the high ground? He's looking to connect the shots onto this player, so unsuspecting, but Rise almost going down, still clutches it up as Swirl actually go down, and fortunately for them, they walk away as the victors of that game.
You know, I'm over here, I'm looking at my watch, thinking, isn't it that time? It's about time. Yamzo and Rise show up and show out, taking that victory royale. They're one of the teams that everybody thought could be a favorite to take it overall. Better late than never. This could be the start with 2 games left to a push that they're looking to take the top of the leaderboards.
Not just a push, this is a momentum shift in the entire lobby. We saw several teams go down from the top 5, including Kanata Agers, Acorn Cold. And for Yamzo and Rise to step up in that moment, when it really counted, shows why they deserve to be in the top 10 and potentially the top spot of the leaderboard.
Shot after shot. Yamzo's ready. We got to give the Axie and Swirl credit as well. Even though Cold went down, he went down, I believe, in the top 10 when it comes to positions in that game. So even though Yamzo and rise to the top, I still don't know what's happening with those leaderboards. Are we going to have another photo finish?
It might just be a photo finish, but the only one to break down that photo is, of course, Zeke, Vivid, and Kelly.
Got a little bit smaller.
Yeah, a little bit smaller. But it's okay. Look, Vivid joining us here for the last 3 games on the day. And I feel like I got whiplash, dude. That shot from Yamzo right there at the end. Pow, pow, pow!
I mean, the whole time he's just looking like, oh, this guy's just shockwave hammering back and forth and back and forth. And finally ends up finding elimination in the victory royale. But shout out to them, though, playing the low ground and dominating from it as well, which allowed them to actually, ultimately take that high ground, as you can see here, claiming the front side of zone, finding an elimination off the back of Nani as well. Very unsuspecting player, but the more impressive thing is that was their first elimination on the game, right? We're in the moving zones. How have you guys made it all the way to this point in the game without finding a refresh?
But again, it was that smart ability to tunnel through those low ground layers until they saw the opportunity arise to actually challenge and take over the high ground. And it wasn't until the 9th zone, which is definitely a bit of a 180 from what we've been seeing out of this duo, but it was honestly only a matter of time, it feels like, until we saw them get this victory royale, given that every single game they've played today, they've been placing in the top 10.
Yeah, 100%. Honestly, shout out to Cold kind of being the MVP on that game, right? Peterbot and Booga were looking healthy on the high ground. Cold somehow finds Booga, and then, of course, Peterbot's only a solo on the high ground, ultimately allowing Yamzo and Rise to take the high ground. But standing Zeke.
We got to take a look. I don't understand how we're already this high up here, but after that game, Yamzo and Rise, this is why we continue to talk about this, right? You just need one good game, and suddenly you could be finding yourself attacking this top 10 leaderboard. But just look all the way down. I mean, really, there's only been just a couple incremental shifts, right? It's only in the 7th place, Aoxy looking to finally jump up into that top 10.
Yeah.
But right now, I feel like for Yamzo and Rise, and of course, Acorn and Cold, they can't stop, right? They're not that far ahead of everybody else.
That's kind of been the key, though, with Acorn and Cold, is that they have had those halts in comparison to Yamzo and Rise, who have been consistently finding those top-tier placements.
You know what has not stopped, though? That #1 spot switching throughout the entire day. For Acorn and Cold, right? They keep getting a buffer, and you guys have talked about it time and time again. Like, oh, nice, now they have a lead, and then every game it's just like, oh, where did that lead go? And the chase is on right now, only 3 points separating them, but shout out to Acorn and Cold, and I'm just going to say Acorn and Cold, right? Because he has been putting on an absolute performance here today. He wants this one for sure.
Definitely looking like a one-man clinic at times, because as Jacob was talking about, you would think it's a magic act, because it makes 0 sense how he's able to pull these eliminations from out of nowhere, but that is a little bit of that clutch factor, but now you need to see the consistency being coinciding along it.
Imagine if they were a duo in every single one of those moments, right? Like, they'd be winning every single game. So we're probably lucky that it's even this close right now, the fact that it's just been Cold a lot of these times.
I almost wonder if it's like the same thing, because like when they're a duo, they're fearsome, and then when one drops, it's like, well, good luck. They're finding elims, they're playing spoiler on everybody, but with only 2 games left to go, I want to continue to see this battle at the top go back and forth. Now, really quickly, we do want to take a moment, Revise and Reciprocal. We want to touch on Storm Surge, right? These guys seem to have their strategy on lock.
Yeah, 100%, especially with the south pulling zone, Taco.
Of course, they didn't have too much to actually travel, given that they just were rotating downward in that southern position as is. But the main thing that we noticed was the fact that they were utilizing those push bombs to kind of keep themselves hidden while they're also prioritizing their surge attacks. Granted, this game didn't really pan out in their favor. They had a 26th placement finish, but it was just the fact that they were trying to take the initiative.
Yeah, 100%. As you can see right there, 0 eliminations, but already hovering around that 400 damage mark. So they did a lot of damage. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the first zone over here, kind of where it pulled right. And right there, as you can see, very southern pulling out. Let's go ahead and take a look at the position that they were actually in. the X will mark that position for them. Now, reciprocal there, the reason why this is so important to maintain this position, right? I just mentioned Southern pooling zone. He pretty much controls all of those Northern teams coming down, and he can just sit there, right? Farm all of those teams that are coming in, as you saw in some of those highlights as well. All those players kind of rotating in, trying to hide behind their builds, but there's no match for the aim of these players.
And again, I think for him, he was probably hoping for a couple more of those refresh instances, not able to really gather the resources, I think, that they wanted to maintain it, but still love the idea that they were looking to actually bottleneck the competition.
100%.
You love to see it. We only have 2 games left to go here in grand finals, which is kind of a scary thought because I don't want it to end, but we're now coming down to the wire. And I know what you're thinking. Maybe some of these duos, they need to pull out of stops, but if I'm outside the top 10, all I'm thinking about is how can I get in that top 10? This is life-changing amount of money for some of these duos, right? So what are we hoping to change?
What I'm hoping to change, I guess I just want to see more changes at the top of the leaderboard, honestly, right? A couple teams breaking to the top 10, but the race for first right now has just been changing throughout the day. I want to see more of that. Keep it exciting for that last game.
If Yamzo and Rise stay uncontested, like I believe they would at the Slap and Go, we could see first place maybe running away with it a little here.
Ooh. Oh, man. The stress on an 11 right now for me. This is how I almost said 12. Yeah. But hey, speaking of 11, game 11 is ready for us with 2 games left to go. Don't stop cheering for your favorite duo because it just takes one good game and we could look to strike that top 10. But it's game time. Game 11.
With only 2 games left on the day, the amount of leaderboard changes leads me to believe one thing. We are in for a show, and I got my ticket, front row seats, ready to watch it all unfold.
I mean, look, we got the best seats in the house, to be honest. We got the big screen. We got everything going for us, and I can't wait to see how Game 11 unfolds. 2 games remain, the penultimate game here for this competition, and it starts now. The battle bus is loaded and ready to go, and let's dive into the final 2 games.
With 2 games left, heard them talk about it between games. Where you're at in the leaderboards means so much. Adjustments have to be made. These are the moments everybody has been fighting for through the first 3 weeks, through Surge Week, through day 1. It's all come down to these final moments. And for an uncontested team like Sphinx and Shadow, business as usual, loot up. If Storm Surge was a problem, make sure it's not. And a 50-50, one of the biggest we've seen. Users gets the Maven, continues with the pickaxe, finally switches it on out, and seals the deal. Goes back-to-back, taking out both Blake and Bizzle to start the game off.
That's a tough start. Taking those 50-50s, you never really know which way it's going to go. But when Blake and Bizzle struggle to take those split off-spawn engagements, they have to do what they have to do. But speaking of things that have to be done, it's Deoxy and Swirl continuing to win this part of the farm here as the fight continues to play in their favor. It seems like Spade and Chimp, their game plan and their strategy is to be split, and it's just not working out in their favor. But look at this. It looks like Acorn went down early, and Peterbot and Booga are moving in. They realize they have the knock and that they are much healthier than them. So this is their chance to disrupt the top of the leaderboard.
This is their chance to build themselves points, give themselves hope. But an interesting decision to disengage altogether coming out from Booga. Probably didn't like the amount of time it took them to close the gap and close the distance to get over towards the south side of Slappy Shores. And then you got to hear for the audio that Cole did find a shockwave hammer on top of that, giving them a free get out of jail free card.
I'm going to be honest. If they had the information we had and knowing how weak they were, Booga and Peterbot would not have disengaged. So could have been what we know personally as a bit of a disadvantage, or a bit of a misplay, I should say. But for them, it was definitely the right call, especially in that moment. When you don't have all the information going into a fight, it's not safe for you to take. And that's why you see teams like Jackson and D-Roller find so much success. They only seem to be taking the fights that they know 100% that they can win. And despite that, occasionally still finding themselves caught off guard, but that's how the game plays.
Jock and Quag trying to play the game of their own, going against Mega and Justice. We see Mega and Justice fall, trying to gather that Storm Surge. Instead of building a tower in the sky, they're just trying to box fight for it. Very, very early on, you see them taking the high ground, making sure they have 200 effective shield and HP, shooting some Excalibur rifle shots over the top, trying to break through the covers, but the third party here towards Faulty Split is an actual possibility, especially for a team on the other side. That's Kanata, that's Agers. They know how to sneak up and grab that Storm Surge to keep themselves alive, at least towards the mid game.
Yeah, they've done interestingly in the mid game. It seems like Mega and Justice specifically aren't necessarily finding their groove when it comes to those mid game fights, even the early game fights. But the one time we did see them in the end game, they did find success. So it's not like they can't do well, especially in these high pressure situations. It's just, it seems like everybody seems to be targeting them in this early and mid game fight and sequence. So for them, they need to figure out how to get over that lull that is the early and mid game for them, so they can find more entries into the end.
And you can see this time around, instead of both of them taking that high ground, to stop their escape, dwindle down the options. Justice taking the high ground, Mega taking the low. A couple of shots are going to be fired off, nothing connecting just yet. And that's why you see them re-engaging towards the bottom, making sure they're hip to hip. Safety is key for Jock and Paul. Resources is going to be a huge tool for their success here, as this fight does end up prolonged. And this is the dangerous thing. Look at how close they are towards the edge of zone. Even though there's not a lot of teams towards the southeast, the ones that are there could begin to rotate in and cause some disruption in this scenario.
Disruption is key, especially for teams that have found so much success up until this point. You need to find a way to disrupt their flow, to cause them to make mistakes, to cause them to overextend so you can capitalize on those. And that's what we see here now. Bryce and Chubbs getting challenged for the position that they're in. It's up against Mega and Justice. Despite them not necessarily having the best mid-game fights, they're still taking this one and they're still practicing, trying to get better here. But Chubbs, unfortunately, going to catch Mega off guard and is going to be able to clean one up on him. Now, though, it is all down to Justice. Can he hold on as a solo against such a strong team?
Interesting decision, though, to kind of throw the shield keg lower. If Justice was weak, he could have healed off of it, but he's too busy being on the run, trying to stay within his pieces, control as much as he can of this game plan, but Chubb shockwaving up, destroying all that was his. But you see Jock and Claw, ones that started the fight. They left for a moment, but now they're here to try to finish the job, even though it's Chubbs and Bryce who are going to get the eliminations. Claw and Jock are hoping that they're weak, hoping that they're down bad, so they can quickly try to clean this one up, because their loot, well, you know, before this point, I would say their loot wasn't that good, but now they're stealing away shield keg, they're stealing away other heals, so they can actually choose to disengage, which looks like what they're going to do.
Honestly, probably the right play here in a situation like this. We got to talk about the leaderboard over here right now. Obviously, Acorn and Cold just outside the top spot. Iamzo and Rise holding it down there up top. But look at how close. Just a few points separate first and second. But once you get to third, it's a pretty decent gap. So it kind of becomes, for at least game 11, for Acorn and Cold, do you have enough to surpass Rise and Iamzo going into the final game? Or will Rise and Iamzo look to go back-to-back?
Can I throw another or in there?
Yeah, throw another
or. Like we're boating ourselves to safety. Can you imagine the scenario here? I talked about a photo finish. Acorn and Cold go down. Iamzo and Rise go down. And those third, fourth, and fifth place teams pop 40, 50-point games. That literally will put us in a 12th game winner-take-all scenario between those competitors.
Yeah,
saying.
I mean, remember, that gap is, while it is large, it's not too large to allow for another team to skyrocket in 2 games, because it is. You got 2 games. With the ability to get 100+ points in 2 games right now, with 2 very, very good ones, I mean, look, anything goes. But for players like Trashy and Pump, who haven't found their groove in the second half of the day, they need to begin to work on it. Remember, day 1, they were elimination heavy, leading the elimination leaderboard for a majority of the day. But here in day 2, that's just not the case. We don't even see them in the top 5 anymore of the elimination leaderboard. So with things like this taking place, you have to wonder what's going through their heads. What are they trying to do here for the remainder of this competition?
Only time will tell. As Aoxy and Swirl, we saw them kind of start off the game, winning another battle against Chip and Spade. We can see a huge jump for them. 23rd to end the day, number 1. And now they're 7th on the day here today. So it's going to be a huge opportunity to see a lot of these players that aren't known to be superstars of their region continue to build and become superstars here of the NA.
Listen, there's so many superstars when it comes to North America East. So many superstars. And I can't wait to see in Major 2 what superstars are going to be challenged throughout all of NA. But we focus on the now. We focus on the here. We focus on the Jackson that is connecting some decent surge shots here. Because remember, when you're taking shots at an enemy at this distance, you're not thinking you're going to get an elimination. No, you are solely doing that with the intent to get as much surge damage as you can, especially from that type of position.
Yep, everybody kind of having that similar scenario play out. Grab one of these edges, one of these mountaintops. You build 3, 4, sometimes even 5 layers high, and just begin to just look at everybody rotating in and out of the zone as Rise and the Danger Hero clicks in, just gathering him some HP, but that's not going to stop him. Persistence is the name of the game when it comes to Storm Surge. Just because you get tagged up once, maybe even twice, doesn't mean you can slow down, because Storm Surge is just one of those things. If you forget about it, it'll creep up on you and cost you everything.
Yeah, I mean, look, that's been one of the big struggles for Acorn and Cold. They would have been so much further ahead of the leaderboard had they figured out their Storm Surge strategies in a few of the games today. So for them, finding themselves in second is not where they want to be, and that's why they're going to continue to fight the climb. But another team that needs to fight for their climb, it is Jack and Kwa. This team definitely has the potential to cause some issues for some of these top 10 teams. But so far, they find themselves doing things like this, fighting in the storm, taking some unnecessary damage for a few more elimination points. And we've seen how risky that play actually is. Even if you do convert onto the eliminations, more often than not, you find yourself going down to the storm.
It's just relentless right now coming out from Jock and Claw. Elimination right before their very eyes. 4 more points as he hits him with the dunk, sending him back to the lobby. 1 game left for Qua and Jock. They're trying to make the most of the 2 games that they have left. Just like everybody else in the sitting situation. Aviv, User. Instead of the south, they're trying to rotate in from the northern portion of the map. A little bit farther of a rotate than some of the other teams that we're going to see here today. And you can see them maneuvering towards the west, trying to go north. They're trying to bypass a lot of that chaos that they're going to run into with the zone that continue to pull towards the south of the map. And for Acorn and Cold, they made their rotation quick, concise, and now they're on the hunt for Surge. That's been one of the things that's been plaguing them on the day. When they find that huge amounts of success in some of their games, they're way ahead of the curve. In other games, when they're finding those struggles, it's because they didn't get the early game damage that they needed.
We'll see momentarily as you hear that Surge indicator go off. That means Surge will be active going into the 3rd zone. For players like Miro and Ed, though, they're set up for success. 201 damage above is huge. That means they do not have to do too much outside of the scope of the work to stay in this game, of course. But they will have to consider moving soon. Despite them having a nice spot here in the Citadel, this is not going to be a spot that they can hold as the zone continues to pull away, pull south. And with players like Bryce and Chubbs already establishing themselves here in the zone, using these bushes to get to where they need, they should be worried. Because teams like this establishing early is only a problem for the teams that still find themselves rotating.
You can see them just hiding in the bush, though, trying to make their position as unknown as possible. You can see them going from bush to bush. Scalpel rifle is just going to destroy the bush altogether, not allow them to have that feeling of safety anymore. With the southern pulling zone continues to go towards the west. All those teams that are slow to rotate in from the east and north side of the map are going to find some struggles, because most of the teams have already found their position on the east side, a couple more towards the north, but there's about 10 to 12 teams outside of the zone on the north portion of the map that still need to find their sweet spot.
The sweet spot, the sweet science of Fortnite and how you play these games. Look, I can write on a piece of paper everything you need to do in a game of Fortnite. It's up to you as a player to execute on said game plan and have the strategies, mechanics, resources in mind to take full advantage of the players and the strategy around you. And for players like InPen, they know how to do just that. Having a spectacular day number 2 following a decent day 1 has been a great story for them. Looking forward to see how they finish and if they finish strong here with game number 11 about halfway through.
Look at that combination right there. Look at that combination. The Falcon Scout gathering information. Where are these players at? Picking up Pilly's plunder, treasure map. Where do we need to go? And honestly, by how long he actually left it in the inventory, I think it's a chance for them. I think it's something they might go for. Booga and Peterbot, not much for them to do, but to rotate in towards zone. Not too much congestion all around, just like Revised and Reciprocal have all the congestion all around. But with the Shockwave Hammer and a throwable launch pad right below, they have more than enough movement to get to zone. It's all about timing for them. We talked about going too soon, you become beam, you become the focus of the lobby, but you go too late, that same thing happens. So you gotta make sure if you're going to take the risk, you go when the timing's right.
Go when the timing's right is gonna be the story here for Acorn and Cold. Definitely, in my opinion, a bit early to rotate with the hammer there, especially with so many other teams rotating around, but they're going to do it again here, just trying to get set up in position, but Demon catching them off guard. And if they're not careful, they're going to take a lot of damage when they go to hammer yet again, and that's what we're going to have to watch here in the feed, see if one of those players ends up getting caught off guard, because that's going to be a tough rotate for Acorn and Cold.
Quick reactions coming out from Dubs, though, seeing those builds, fresh builds be solidified. He immediately built a defensive wall for himself, doesn't want to get surprise attack from above. Talk about above, 455 above the damage threshold, the Amzo and Rise. And this is the thing, though, with a two-horse race like this, 3 points separating Rise the Amzo from Acorn and Cold, it almost does something to you mentally, where you don't want to risk those big plays in which you're known for, but at the same time, it's those same big plays that got you to the top of the leaderboard, so it's an interesting situation for some of these players to be in. Wow. Ooh, no.
That's tough.
Think about interesting, right?
That's an interesting pickup for Joji and Roque, who definitely had a stronger day one than day two. However, they could easily turn that around here in the final two games. But Aoxy and Swirl, man, this duo has done something not too many contested teams can do, and that is continue to win their off-spawn engagement. And on top of that, that off-spawn engagement there with Chimp and Spade has been massive points on the board for them. So if they can continue to do this going into game number 12 and nothing changes, they could still finish strong. But a team that is fighting for the opportunity to finish strong is Peterbot and Booga as they clean up a nice 2 eliminations here in the storm. But they need to start moving fast as the hammer play now comes out and Peterbot and Booga just moving forward.
All right, Panda, we hear you. That's what they're saying right now. You want us to rotate, we shall. First Shockwave Hammer coming out. The gatekeepers, Kanata and Aegis on the other side. They were the ones who eliminated Peterbot in game number 6 on the day yesterday. Can they mimic that? Just shy right there, box to box. Opportunity for Kanata and Aegis to try to land a huge amount of damage. That one's gonna escape them for a moment, but Booga's weak. He becomes a focus of the lobby. They can sense the heals going off as well. A battle for the piece control goes on right before our very eyes. And it does look, I think Booga and Peterbot are going to win that exchange for now, but it's going to continue on. Kanata and Aegis take it right back. Having two big-name teams box to box this close together, both hungry for the actual eliminations, this is going to be scary.
Scary indeed, and Booga had to use way more heals than he anticipated up until this point in the game. But Kanata and Aegis are going to fully disengage there, going to allow for Peterbot and Booga to move. But other teams move in. Tahi, Death, going to get to the edge of zone, going to box up here where they can. Exceptional on their part. They need to be very, very aware of the situation that they're in. They're not necessarily in zone quite yet, but they can use this building to recoup some of those mats that they had to use on rotate and just try to stay alive.
Everybody here running low on a lot of their resources, their mats, that safety net, which you're talking about, that's going to use to try to keep them alive. Jackson in the roller, boxing up over a bush. Everybody really in this meta, really keen to using those big bush bombs, hiding their position. Combine that with the augment to regain shields and heal all together to about 150 total. And then be able to return fire without your position actually being known. That's why you see so many teams begin to lean towards that harvester augment, and then you think towards the end game, those crucial heals in which you used early on, it's more healing effectiveness that you're going to get with that augment.
Using the Bush Warrior has been a crucial play for a lot of these teams. We've seen them take unnecessary damage, but with the Bush Warrior augment and the bush in hand, they're able to heal up quite quickly. So many teams, though, are ready. Remember, we're in the 4th zone now, meaning that moving zones is right around the corner here. And these teams are going to establish themselves early, especially the ones that have forecast. If I had any indication as to where this zone was going to be, I'm going to say it's going to go further to the east. You see the stack of players there on that side? That leads me to believe one of two things. Number one, that a lot of those players had to rotate on that side. Or number two, somebody's got forecast and they understand exactly where they need to be. And sure enough, a majority of the players to that southeast are going to be easily set up for success when it comes to that zone. But Acorn and Cold still struggling, still holding on, and still trying to do what they can.
Somebody got eliminated right in the front. They're just trying to scrounge up and sneak away all that loot. The player who actually even got the elim was Acorn itself. Opportune time. Everybody becomes the focus of the lobby. And it's he who ends up standing tall. He actually didn't even get the loot. It was somebody else's loot he's gathered. There's loot all over the place, and you got to keep that in mind when we go towards the moving zones and people try to play heal off. That is the scavenge loot in which everybody will try to go for it.
You're absolutely right. When you're moving and you see some of those extra piles of material, the extra hammer, maybe the extra weapons laying down, your first thought is going to be, how can I take some of that for myself? And that's what these teams are going to try to do as we begin to move. Chubbs and Bryce, though, find themselves in a sticky situation. They are not far above the damage threshold, so if they do not do enough damage right now, they could end up taking quite a bit of damage here. But sure enough, they find a few shots. It's going to get them up in a nice spot here. But with these players rotating in with the hammer, they're not done yet.
I feel bad for every team in this lobby if that zone goes even more south. If it goes southeast, over shattered slabs, the different elevations, the water, the amount of disruption it's going to cause here in this lobby. He still has Billy's plunder. If he makes this work at the end of the game,
I'll be impressed.
I'm going to be more than impressed. I might have to make him a little Peely trophy or something, just to say, hey, you made the daring play at the end game. But honestly, it could change the ties. Late game heals when you don't have any, that could be an opportunity for them to find some success. Oof. Pen, I don't want to tell them. Where did the zone go? I don't want to. Oop. I'm sorry, guys.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
If any team's got forecast, it's Booga and Peterbot. Look at the way they're set up here on the edge of this one. They know it's just a matter now. They look back. They're going to get some tags, potentially eliminations onto some unsuspecting players that need to rotate towards them. And then wait. Wait will be the name of the game as they hit those hammer plays going towards zone. But zone 6 is here. Jacob, rev your engines. Get ready to go because the energy starts now.
And my engine's been revved since game number 8 on the day. And this is going to be the interesting thing as a lot of these teams begin to launch themselves high in the sky. Cease as well, using the aerialist augment. And once you saw that zone pull towards the east, that's when you really had to buckle down and say, what is our plan? Do we have enough build? Can we outlast? Booga gets caught out. Peterbot trying to find some redemption. A huge shot onto Miro, but he's barely going to be able to escape for now. But now Peterbot, probably one of the more mechanically skilled players we've seen in quite a while, is going to be stuck by himself. He got the knock onto Miro. Now he's really trying to finish the job, and finish the job he will. Taking down Ed, a huge flank, and a huge double elimination on the duo.
Booga caught out by his old teammate, but Peterbot able to clean it up, and Rise now trying to clean some things up too, as he is a solo player too. Agers, Kanata still in this lobby. So many heavy hitters still in this lobby, and Revive's reciprocal finding themselves on the high ground is huge. When we saw them here yesterday, they were winning games.
This is going to be a great opportunity for them, but the lack of resources, the mats, makes me a little shaky, but if anybody can get it done, it's the persistent players that continue to go for the high ground. Acorn and Cold. Rise is by himself. The 2-horse race has got even more interesting. Rise has to do it all by himself. Cold and Acorn, they're down on Storm Surge, 192. Something I wouldn't have expected to this spot. They're trying to keep it going. They're trying to make sure it doesn't really worry them in this situation, but it got me a little worried, especially with Acorn getting dropped, leaving Cold by himself. The world of pressure on his shoulders and using the last of his heals. It's only him that makes the job done. I called him a magician before, and magic happens again.
Huge elimination there onto Dubs. Remember, listen, Cold as a solo player is exceptional, but when he has more pressure on his shoulders, whether it's the surge damage he's having to worry about, these other players he's having to worry about, sometimes that will cause him to crumble, so he needs to do everything he can to collect as many points as he can. The name of the game is survival because placement is so valuable in a situation like this.
Depending on if he has any time to pay attention to the feed, you got to be looking at Yamzu and Rise at least outlasting them at the very minimum here in game number 11. That's going to be key, but waiting in the wings, waiting to see them pop off. Kanata and Agers trying to take this opportunity by storm with a lot of the top teams in shambles. This is their moment to strike. Without resources, without any material to work with, they're going to have to figure out another way in, but they find a gold mine towards the low ground. But Reciprocal and Revise, I asked the question, do they have enough resources to hold on? They said, yes, sir, we do.
Yes, sir, indeed. Let's see if they can maintain it, though, because so many players are going to look soon. They're going to try and take it as they can, especially with players like this. Agers losing Kanata does have the hammer in the inventory and can cause disruption for the entire lobby. But Cold now just trying to get ahead of zone.
Where is he finding this loot? Where is he? Where's the llama at? I don't know where Cole's going to be able to dig deep. How many times? Every time I think he's going to be out, he pops right back on in. Kanata and Agers as well. The revive is going to be successful. Chess Genius is trying to challenge for the high ground. Everything comes crashing down, but did they take it back? Kanata and Agers trying to survive, living on a prayer, down on resources, similar to Cold, but he has all the resources to work with. And as soon as zone pops, he builds himself outward, and he's getting ready because he knows you have to have those boots strapped in.
The solo impact of Cold in this competition is unreal. He has put so many points here as a solo player that it is massive, but another team that is putting points on the board, it is Chess Genius and Inpin yet again. 9 eliminations, Jacob.
This is the second time we've seen this. Waiting to the late game, waiting to the movie zones where everybody's in shambles. They force that high ground take and they hold on to it, but Cold is still going. This man has energy for days, and you can see him sneaking, prowling in the distance, trying to hunt the opponents, but the pressure from the high ground is stopping his plan. But up he goes. He said, you challenge me, I will make sure you regret it. But bouncing in and out of zones, his opportunity is running out as his match run go.
This is it here. Can Cold hold on? He gets an elimination or a knock onto Kanata. But Agers still in this game. He's looking to convert, and he does. A full elimination comes through. Cold now fights Agers here for it all. It's actually death on the other side of this. Another one coming through here for Cold. Can he be stopped?
Another one. That's going to be the name of the game. DJ Cold does enough, but it's not enough to topple over N-Pen and Chess Genius. They mimic that game plan that they used games before, taking high ground in the late moments when they knew everybody has expended every resource they have. That might be their same strategy going into the final game as well.
My man, Inpin and Chess Genius are on another level here in this competition today. I'm telling you, they have been upping their game this season. We saw not too long ago, Inpin finding themselves at the bottom of the leaderboard in an FNCS Finals. Well, guess what? It's a different story today.
A different story, and a story that's unfolding right before our very eyes. Cold was handed that script along with Acorn. They threw it right out the window. It landed in N-Pen and Chess Genius's hands, and they're rewriting it game after game, moment after moment. But the interesting thing is, Panda, Yamzo and Rise, they went down earlier than Cold and Acorn. Cold got eliminations towards the end game. That means, did we have another lead change?
I think we did. And honestly, the way the Cold's playing, can he be stopped? The only one that can answer it at this point is Zeke, Taco, and Vivid.
Panda always as sharp as ever. My gosh, but not nearly as sharp as Cold.
I'm done.
I'm done, man. My goodness. We'll get back to Cold in just a moment because we have to kind of give a spotlight here to N-Pen, of course. Yeah. Finding himself the victory royale. I believe that's their second one on the day. That's got to feel so good coming into grand finals.
Playing so good. I mean, high ground was the name of the game for them that game, 100%. And then, you know, shout out to them for also being very, very well of the natural ground that they needed to, you know, scale up that mountain, make sure they go ahead and secure that victory royale as well, picking up a lot of eliminations along the way.
And I definitely think that the loot that they'd managed to acquire up to this point certainly boded well for them also, because you can see that Launchpad no longer in Chess Genius's inventory. Definitely got some great utilization out of that one. But the celebration, I mean, he's owed it, especially after getting a double repeat on the day.
Honestly, they've had a really good day number 2, 372 points. I'm curious to see what our first place team is at. Probably got to be upwards of 500 right now, but you know, they're on the chase right now. They want to get into that top 10 100%.
Yeah, now I want to circle back, man. Cold, I don't know what Cold is doing.
I'm done.
I'm done. Cold has got to be the region's best solo player. I'm talking box to box. This man is unstoppable. We'll take a look at our standings here to kind of set it all up. And it's because of Cold on his shoulders alone. And again, I just don't understand how it doesn't matter. Like in those final moving zones, when it's just him, even me, like us three were freaking out because like for a moment he shockwaves up, hits a zip line from literally nowhere, breaks build, slides, builds walls, he's safe. This guy's game sense is crazy.
See, guys, I try to like predict like storylines, what's going to happen throughout these games, right? As I see it all happen, and I saw Yamzo and Rise go down, right? And I was like, oh, okay, that's one of our top 2 teams. And then I saw Acorn going down, and I was like, maybe I owe Cold like a little bit of an apology for this one because I saw Acorn go down. I was like, oh, okay, both of our top 2 teams are going to go down, and the chase is going to be on first place going into the last game. And then Cold's like, hey, Vivid, I'm going to go ahead and solo clutch up a 2nd place, and like I said, I'm done.
Cold definitely looking like he's got some ice in his veins after these kinds of individual performances. And not only that, but I think it's also the fact that Yamzo and Rise, they went down early, yes, but we saw Cold and Acorn. They were actually struggling. They were below the Storm Surge threshold, and yet Cold still manages to bring it back for this team. And I understand, NFEN, Chess Gaming, that's a secondary Victory Royale on the day, but with the way that Cold is playing, I'm sorry, he might have stolen a little bit of that spotlight.
Just look, 51 eliminations.
Gosh.
Okay, 51. The next highest is 42, and it's coming from NFEN, right? And yet somehow Cold is just doing the unthinkable, and now they have a single game left to go. Honestly, at this point, I feel like you have to take down Cold Force, or you have to take them both down. If you take down Acorn, it's like he becomes unshackled, activates final form, and everyone else loses.
Good luck taking down Cold, because I'm watching, I'm just like, yeah, not happening. It's really not.
Not with the way that today has been panning out so far for him, and it just seems as though he's like a loot attractor because everywhere he moves, he's still managing to find materials, find resources that he can utilize in those solo clutch situations, but also, have to keep in mind, the ball is kind of in Yamzo and Rise's court now because that man just threw up the best kind of buffer zone that you could imagine heading into the final match.
I mean, 57 points, but just imagine this, right? I want to emphasize how important that solo clutch is because, again, we mentioned Yamzo and Rise went down, Acorn went down around the same amount of time, so if Cold went down at that same point as well, then they would be around the same amount as points as Yamzo and Rise. Now, Kanata and Aders are only trailing by around 30 points. Not sure where they came from, bumping up three placements right there for them as well. And we could have a completely different game number 12, but I mean, it's all on Cold's shoulders right now, just carrying the team for sure.
Hey, but shout out to Acorn. He's definitely got the #1 teammate morale support there.
Those comms.
That's a duo. Yep.
Those comms, right? When he's eliminated, they've got to be off the charts.
Absolutely insane. A single game left to go here in grand finals in NA East. I blinked, it was gone. I blinked again. Cold's out here putting up the performance of a lifetime. They have eyes set on a spot going to global championships. They are playing like they are already there.
Listen, regardless of the results, I think that one thing has definitely been established for today, and that is that Cold is an absolute madman. And honestly, I owe you an apology. I wasn't really familiar with your game, but I am now. So.
Listen, Cold, what are you eating in the morning? That is my meal from now on. It's ridiculous. Game number 12, if it's about him again, I'm going to be done.
Double done. Then we go home. We out of here. But that being said, a single game left to go here in NA East. Remember, don't stop cheering for your favorite duo. Being able to break into the top 10 would be wild. This is life-changing amounts of money. And of course, we have to keep eyes on Cold. Will we run this back once again? Can anybody stop the freight train that is Cold? Let's find out because this is game number 12.
Here it is, the final chance for these teams to disrupt this leaderboard. Will Cold and Acorn be stopped? Will Kanata and Agers cause an upset to stay in the top 10, top 5? Well, it's time. The final game of the NA East Grand Finals begins right now, Jacob.
Everything that we've been watching for the last 5 weeks comes down to this very last game. For some, there's still a fight. There's still a chance for first place. For others, there's still a life-changing amount of money on the line. So you can't give up quick. A couple of shots could be landed. And this is how you get someone like this going. You got to imagine how confident he's feeling at this stage of the game.
Taking some big shots there on to Peterbot or Booga. One of them going to have to fend from a health deficit. But Bizzle and Blake actually winning this off spawn. here to the chest first. Now they're pushing straight forward. Bizzle feeling confident with that machine SMG in hand. Will he be able to break in and cause some disruption for users? That's what he's looking to do. But a bush comes out, and for Bizzle, he's looking to continue this fight on. User's going to take a little bit of damage, but definitely still in a healthier spot than Bizzle is. Now going to ignite the gas can. Blake pushing in. Polarized trying to get to his teammate, but it's not going to be quick enough as Blake ends up getting the first knock of this fight.
Damage here is going to be important for Blake, and it is going to be more than just that. Wrap him up, ship him out. Blake and Bizzle come out on top again. And one of the things I was hearing was all the noise from Polarized and users. And I was saying, Bizzle's an OG. You can't stop that, man. It's Chess Genius and NPen coming off a huge victory in that last game. Now the pressure comes down to a 1v1 situation. Can Chess Genius outlast Ducky here? You see NPen peeking around the corner, trying to give the information. And you can see Ducky just trying to go up a layer, grab the high ground, grab the additional angle. And the interesting thing is there's no shields on either one of these players. So just a quick shot, a well-placed shot is going to end somebody's day here early.
But whose day will it be? Will it be our last game victors? Will they be going down off spawn? Or will Chess Genius be able to clutch it up here in the final moments, keep them into game number 12? Here it is, though. Remember, they found themselves just outside of the top 10 going into the final game of the day. So for them to walk away with some of that big money at the end of or at the top of the prize pool, they need to do something big here. And sure enough, big shots come through. Will it be enough, though, as Chess Genius just tries to clean it up? Both one shot away from going back to the lobby and ending this entire tournament for them. But now on the back foot, it is Ducky. He said, you know what? I don't feel comfortable taking this fight. But for Chess Genius, he cleans it up. What a way to finish this off-spawn fight for the day.
He just double dipped his chip right there. He just double dipped. He missed the first couple of shots and he went back in for more. That is what you call hungry to call yourself one of the best on the region. Even with NPen going down, getting that first elimination, you could see the biggest thing was the siphon mats of that elimination went on over to Chess Genius to finish off this 1v1 scenario. A huge display of chemistry and teamwork coming out of them too. And then Chess Genius, nerves of steel, showing how to get the job done. But enough celebrating, it's back to the game.
And it looks like not only is it back to the game, but NPen's back in this game as well. Chess Genius is going to be able to get him back in here. And it doesn't look like any of the other teams that are even relatively close can get back into the action and stop that reboot from happening. So huge for them, but also huge for Acorn and Cold here. As Slappy Shores is in zone, which means, like you see here, they can just stack up on top of one of these buildings and take shots in the distance as they need. Now, the one thing Cold needs to be careful, though, is Acorn is split from him. So all it takes is Peterbot and Booga to identify that and push in a 2v1 situation. Well, I still have a lot of confidence in Cold to be able to take on that 2v1 situation. It would still be tougher than he really needs in that moment.
See Yamzo and Rise. 50+ points separate them. And a shot at the FNCS Globals. The Axe of Champions, the prize money, the bragging rights to call yourself the last NA East champion. It's going to take a lot. They're going to have to dig deep if they want to control their own destiny. Because honestly, you can't really count on Acorn and Cold slowing down at this stage of the game as Kanata finding a huge angle, 56 damage when it comes to that Storm Surge, which is honestly great. Typically when you see they have the zone, or at least when it moves towards the center, they're quick to rotate out. They want to get themselves a spot. But now that they know that everybody towards the southern portion of the map is going to have to rotate to them, they look at it as an opportunity to gather Surge for themselves.
Yeah, and who will be able to gather better? That's the question. Because honestly, these teams have been hot and cold, no pun intended, when it comes to Surge. Because some teams have been walking away with it, especially a team like the one targeting Jackson here that's going to be able to get a few tags onto them. But for teams like Time 1X and Chaos, they have finally found themselves no longer in the off-spawn engagement over at the RVs, but no, now going up against Masterclass and Duke. And this is not a team you want to be fighting. Duke, such an incredibly talented fighter. Obviously, Masterclass keeping him level-headed here. Definitely one of the strongest IGLs, of course, in the game. Best minds here on NA. And with a duo like this, anything is possible.
Yeah, anything. This is one of those duos that you can expect greatness, but with the amount of time they spent as a team, it's not necessarily going to be on their best showing here. Just maybe a couple more events, couple more weeks playing together. Masterclass is going to go down. Instead of Duke continuing to fight a 1v2 situation, he's immediately trying to disengage, hoping that if he continues to go south, that they're going to have to disengage themselves because they're just pulling them farther and farther away from the zone. But the impulse grenades coming out. Time 1X trying to close the distance, and almost a huge opportunity from Duke, but Time 1X is going to seal the deal.
Job's not done. Dukes is out, but job's not done for some of these other teams, especially teams like Bugha and Peterbot, who find themselves just underneath Acorn and Cold. This could be a fight off spawn, something we haven't seen these two do in this competition to date. So this would be tough. I'll be honest. This could go either way. And remember, like we were talking about moments ago, if Cold and Acorn go down at this point, then it is wide open for Yamzo and Rise to take it.
I know early on in the season before FNCS began, I was watching those early Elite Cups, right? And this is a similar situation that I've seen play out. Acorn and Cold, top position on the leaderboard. Bugha and Peterbot trying to contest them, take them down early. But in that episode, it was Cold and Acorn who came out on top. So hopefully for Bugha and Peterbot, this isn't going to be a rerun. But for Cold and Acorn, they want to make sure that one is.
Peterbot getting very, very confident in this fight. Despite not necessarily winning up to this point, they clearly realize that they're the only ones that could potentially disrupt the top of the leaderboard, and they're looking to do just that. So for Peterbot, even though he's kind of taking this as a solo, Bugha needs to be with him. And it looks like he's actually going to play to the other side. Peterbot sneaking in from behind, could catch Acorn and Cold off guard, and that's what he's looking to do. All it takes is Cold to open one edit here, and they could potentially snag him, but no, now they're back together. See, I think if there was any chance for them to strike, unfortunately, that time has passed.
Yeah, this is treacherous waters for everybody involved here at this point. Because of how long Peterbot and Bugha were sneaking around. A third-party team slowly but surely closing in on the distance. But the thing is, for them, that team that's rotating in, they're just gathering information. I don't think they know if this is a play they can advance on yet. I don't think they have enough of the intel, and that's why you see Bugha and Peterbot. Bugha spotted him out long ago. They're trying to turn, burn, take him out, and catch them slipping on the sneaky play. Peterbot almost going through, but he's got to shockwave himself up, trying to bulldoze himself through the build, continue the fight going. But the tables might be able to turn. Cold and Acorn could try to third-party this themselves.
Yeah, I mean, this is interesting, and this is actually huge for Acorn and Cold.
Ooh,
if they want, they could begin to disengage, but another team is now wanting to get involved. This is huge here, Jacob.
Acorn and Cold are like, I want none of that. I want none of that noise. I want to win the FNCS right here, right now, and honestly staying alive, not doing anything. That's something we've seen some teams in the similar position. They're able to run away with it. All they need to do, realistically, is not go down early. The placement points will be enough as Peterbot bites off more than he could chew. With a mouthful, he goes down. Bugha stuck with the GOAT mentality, trying to make up for lost time, but he takes too much damage. He's forced back as well. With only a mini and a splash, there's not going to be enough. And Austin and Flo, no, we cannot give him the time to stabilize himself in this position. They're taking additional angles, but back goes Nawson. They realize, hey, we don't want to get stuck. Everybody else from the south's going to rotate up. We got what we came for. Now we continue on with our game.
It's a tough day in the office for Bugha, but still, regardless of that, I still believe they are definitely, or he is definitely the GOAT. You can't argue with me. I will win that argument 10 out of 10 times. This man, no matter how he finishes on the day, still the GOAT in
I'm going to
Fortnite
argue
history.
with you after the show, though.
After the show, listen, we'll talk about it, but I promise you, you know how my opinion is going to sway. But teams that still are in this, it's Rise and Yamzo preying on the downfall of Cold and Acorn there in the distance. They don't know necessarily how much action is taking place, but they want it to happen because all they need to do in a situation like this, stay alive, get some eliminations, and go for a top 5 placement. They do that, and they can actually surpass first place if they go down early.
Yeah, that's the thing about everybody else stuck in the lobby here. If they're looking to take first place, their destiny, their fate is no longer in their hands unless they're going to go toe-to-toe with the team currently sitting in first place. I don't know if that's going to be a good choice, though, with how well they've been playing. Reciprocal and Revised sitting in 5th place, 461 points. Even though they're about 100 points shy of taking that first place spot, I talked about there's still hundreds of thousands of dollars worth fighting for And for a team, it's the bragging rights. That's that cherry on top.
Listen, I think a lot of teams get lost in the oh, I want to win my off-spawn engagement. I want to show the other team that this is my spot and this is where I'm going to land for the future. But more often than not, that story never goes well for either team. But in this situation, for Peterbot and Booga, while it hasn't gone well for them, for Acorn and Cold, it's been quite an opposite story because they're at the top of the leaderboard. So not every contested drop is instantly a bottom 25. No. For them, they have found a way to capitalize on being contested and find success throughout.
And honestly, for Yamzo and Rise, they're going to need a huge recipe for success. They're going to have to gather all the ingredients and begin to cook up something here in this situation. Because just hoping and praying Cold and Acorn go down, I'm not sure that's going to be enough. Because they still have about 50 points to overcome, even if that situation does play out like they want. As Acorn and Cold, I spotted that rotation in the distance, immediately trying to disengage. And honestly, that was a scary sight at the beginning of the game, but oh my God, what an even scarier. 66 points as a solo? Why can't I be that good?
I mean, listen, I'll be honest with you. If you were that good, you'd probably be playing. You probably wouldn't be hanging out with me, and I couldn't imagine anybody else to bring NA East home with than my brother Jacob. So I'm glad you're not that good, because then we get to break it down here. But for Acorn and Cold, they're also glad. They're also super glad to be still up and at it in this game. You saw them using the boat rotate in, and actually on the side that they were rotating in on, there wasn't a lot of congestion. So if they continue to rotate further north, they might find some success and be able to stay alive in it, but with a V-even user on the height, looking and lurking, waiting for one of these teams to seemingly leave their head open for those shots to connect onto. They have to be aware, because it's going to be a tough day if they find themselves at the other end of a V's shots.
Yeah, they're hoping players like Reciprocal and anybody else maneuvering themselves towards Brutal Bastion use those static launch pads to try to rotate, because they're one of the teams the highest elevation on this side of the map. So for them, probably licking their lips, licking their chops, hoping for that one to come through. As the struggles for Yamzo and Rise, we saw them moments ago, down when it came to Surge. Not looking too much better, even though it's only 42. There's not too many teams close by for them to try to pop those shots. Everybody is boxed up in a box fight, or just trying to rotate themselves in towards zone. The first team that gets spotted out ends up putting the tags onto Yamzo himself. Luckily for him, he does have danger here to try to take himself up, and finds a team slow to rotate towards the backside of zone, finding a miracle to keep themselves above the threshold.
We were talking about Yamzo and Rise needing Acorn and Cold to go down early, but it looks like Yamzo and Rise might be the ones to drop here, as they are 91 damage above the threshold. That's not a lot to work with, especially because Surge was just taken away at their health. So for some of these other teams, they're going to start playing this together. And what just happened? Yamzo must have got the last hit onto Bryce, and Bryce is now out.
That's just one of those situations you don't see happen every day. A little bit of a fadeaway coming out from Yamzo. And this is where you could see them. They put that pressure on the duo. As soon as zone pulls, they realize it's almost on the other side of where they're at. Even though they're down, flirting with that threshold. Up, above, down, below, playing a game of ping pong, they realize they still have to rotate while all this chaos is going down. And luckily for them, Narni and Larson peeking through at the wrong time, which allowed them to land a couple of shots. Acorn and Cold keeping themselves going. We saw their rotate, but it's not done just yet. 154 above the damage threshold, though. They have the comfortability. Combine that with a full-on launch pad. They're going to get themselves in zone if they can survive this.
Yeah, and survival is the name of the game here, because remember, they don't have to win the game. Acorn and Cold just have to survive. They just need to stay active in this game and get some placement points, and they solidify their spot up at the top of the leaderboard. So for them, they're playing it safe, playing it cool, calm, collected, and so far it's working for them.
See Rise just trying to escape right now. Doesn't want to get caught in the madness. They're above the threshold by about 180 by the last time we saw it. Gotta imagine Yamzo's nearby, and you can see Reciprocal and Rise go down. 53 points is gonna be the difference. From there, that spread opens up even more. But you got to imagine for D-Roller and Jackson, Agers, Kanata, they still have a shot to overtake at the very minimum second place. And Rise just firing back. Doesn't matter who enters his box. He's going to send them right back on out.
Yeah, I mean, huge play there for Rise to pick that up. That's going to be 4 points, of course, from the elimination onto the board here. And ironically enough, while Iamzo and Rise are staying in this one, so are Acorn and Cold. So while Rise and Iamzo have had the better day too, Acorn and Cold will be able to potentially clutch up these final few moments.
Awesome, late shockwave out. Catch him on the tail end. And this is the situation I was saying for them to control their own destiny at the very minimum. They need eliminations. They've already got 3 underneath their belt. They know the end game has the possibility for even more. And that's going to be the strategy they use to try to close the gap. On the other side, though, the 2-horse race, the one sitting comfortably in first place for now, Acorn and Cold. You said it, survival is going to be the name of the game. Or, you know, you can just land perfect shots like that. I gotta see his total damage at the end of the total FNCS. He's got to be over 9,000.
Over 9,000 indeed here for Cold. I mean, the guy is just incredible when it comes to landing the shots when it counts. And so that's what's going to keep them in this one. But unfortunately, not going to be able to stay in this one is Donnie. Donnie does go down to Scare there in the elimination feed. That's one of those community duos that everybody, of course, was rooting for. Unfortunately, going to be out potentially of this one. But Agers and Kanata, they're never out. Remember, the player in Kanata almost never, I believe only one time, has found himself outside of the top 10 in a high-level competition. So that is massive to think about. So for Kanata and Agers, he's not looking to adjust that trend yet. So they're going to go for big plays here in these next few moments.
Accolades on accolades for Kanata. The list is endless. Only thing he's missing is the NA East FNCS Championship. Hey, there's a possibility Acorn and Cold and Iamzo and Rise go down. They swoop in, they steal it away. Call them the showstoppers if that one comes to fruition. But it takes this team in particular to go down. Rise and Iamzo, 3 eliminations so far. An empty slot on the Rise, so you can imagine the battles that they've been through have cost them some sort of resources up until this point. And can you imagine the top 3 teams right here, right before our very eyes? They don't even know how close they are to ending one's run.
I mean, look, a lot of things can end here.
That's cool for everybody.
Ooh, here it is. Look at the rotate these teams are going to have to do with Acorn and Cold on top of Rise and Iamzo. It's going to be a tough rotate. But like we've mentioned time and time again, everybody's going to be putting their ear to the canvas, listening for that first hammer to strike. And sure enough, there it is. You hear the hammer plays starting to go. People rotating on the outside of the zone. But for a max pool situation like Rise and Iamzo, Acorn and Cold find themselves in, it's going to be tough. But man, that leaderboard continues to get a little bit closer and closer here, Jacob.
Yep. From 50 plus to about 45 at this stage of the game. Rise and Iamzo looking to continue to close the gap. Hot on the heels of a solo. This could be the opportunity that Iamzo and Rise were looking for. Building quite largely towards the low ground, spotting out Blake, seeing him take some damage to another team. Any opportunity, but the problem is they don't want to force it. You force it, a bad play, it's going to turn around to bite you. And they're one of the few teams that can contest first place. And speaking of them, Acorn and Cold parallel once more.
And this could be the fight. This could actually define who climbs up to the top spot on the leaderboard. Acorn and Cold almost wall to wall with Rise and Iamzo, and not much left. Cold is struggling on material.
This is it. They're probably looking at the duo right across from them saying, hey, this is the refresh we're looking for. You see the standings on your top right? Points upon points separating these two. I talked about eliminations being the name of the game for Rise and Iamzo. Imagine eliminating the only team in first place and then going on to have a historic run. But we talked about the lack of resources on the first place team. Still have their eyes set on this refresh right in front of them. Zone's gonna pull. They have to go that direction. So they gotta act quick before Rise and Iamzo find some sort of escape plan. But they're down on resources too.
The two teams that need it the most are struggling, and it looks like their only savior is to fight one another. Could we see this competition end early? Will we know the winner before this game is even done? It is going to be a close battle here on the edge of zone, but it's zone 6. You already know what time it is. Chug down that energy drink. It is time to get hyped as we go into the final moments of the NA East Grand Finals.
See, up goes Yamzo and Rise. They're trying to escape what could be defeat here at the tail end, but he slides down. The few resources he can have to be used to try to get up that mountaintop. Cold doesn't have the hammer to break through these builds, and he has most of the heals, the splashes. Acorn finds a way to reunite. Cold sees a path. He's trying to ignite the fire underneath to keep his position on the leaderboard intact. And everything coming down to this, they figure out a way to escape once, but how many times can they escape death?
And here it is. Casker, Clarity G holding the high ground. Huge play for them, but Acorn and Cold now in the box of another player, but could be the refreshes. Rise, 2, big shot onto Rise, almost finishing it off, but Rise getting away just by a sliver of HP. Iamzo, though, down in the feed. That is massive. Rise left as a solo player. Can he clutch it up?
Acorn and Cold are on shambles as well. Acorn goes down altogether, but somehow the Cold does it again. 2 more eliminations added to his total and a chance to get the res off onto Acorn. It goes down to these moments. Rise is going to have to step up big, but you see high ground, another team entering into the mix. Clarity and Caskers trying to be bracket busters to the leaderboard, ending everybody's run below. There's still thousands of dollars for everybody up for grabs that might not have that chance at first, so they're trying and fighting tooth and nail to keep their own game intact.
What just happened? Acorn is down. Cold only has 63 HP. He needs to move away. Now as a solo player, yet again, down but not out. Cold holds on.
The pressure, the game, this is all it. He's clutched game after game, moment after moment. Always the bridesmaid, never the bride when it comes to second place. Now he's going toe-to-toe, and he does it! Cold and Acorn are your FNCS Major 1 champions!
And we already know they have booked their way on to the Global Championships. Congratulations, Acorn and Cole, but it's not over for these other teams, as Pump still in it as a solo player.
Trying to take down Aviv. There's money up for grabs, and he wants it. He wants it to be all theirs. Aviv is going to be under his belt. Trashy's out. Zone pulls back. That's going to be the miracle they're waiting for. High ground still going to be held by Caskers and Clarity. One of the last times we've seen them this high in the sky was during their big elimination victory, but Kanata and Angers, they say, you're not going to steal the show. We might not come out on top, but we want to be the team they talk about. Down goes Kanata, up goes Angers, 2v1 yet again. What are we witnessing coming down to the wire?
Angers said, nah, Cole isn't the only solo player that can clutch up. I'm going to do it here. Final game of the day, pressuring down below. He has everything he needs. He has a few resources, tons of ammo to make this work, but he just needs to hold on.
This is almost looking like a solo FNCS here. One team has the chance to call themselves a full duo. That's Vert and Walkers that are towards the low ground, trying to stay ahead of zone. If Sphinx is not careful, he could be the next one eliminated out of this lobby, but maybe Pump has something to say about it. He wants to challenge Agents for the high ground, sending him tumbling down. That was his moment to strike. Didn't work out as he wanted, so Agents gonna hold on to be the king in the sky.
Yeah, but how much longer can he hold on? What an elimination onto Pump. He can only hold on for so much more. 20 builds remaining, not too much to work with, but with the way the zone is pulling, he might be able to do it for the remainder of this game. You see Jake, Walkers, Vert, all down below. It is one duo and the rest are solos. Walkers and Vert looking to clean it up from the low ground, but on height, of course, he still remains.
Timing has to be perfect here for Agers. If he wants to try to disrupt the 2v1s, take advantage of the solo that's down, but it's not going to be a chance anymore. Down goes Jake. Vert and Walkers in a 2v1 versus Agers here. And this is all for bragging rights here for the final game. We know who won, but who's going to be rewarded with the last victory round FNCS NA East? And it's going to be Walkers. It's going to be Vert as he hits the slam dunk, taking down Agers.
What a way to finish the NA East Grand Finals Major #1. I mean, honestly, This has been some of the most exciting NA action we have ever seen.
But let's pull it on back. Congratulations to Burt and Walkers. But let's give another huge round of applause, well-deserved, for Acorn and Cold, your FNCS Major 1 champions, and they booked their ticket directly into the FNCS Global Championship.
I mean, honestly deserved. The performance out of these two were just exceptional, but we got to give our flowers to Burton Walkers as well. An incredible finish to an incredible day. Honestly, thank you. Thank you to the players. Thank you to the people around me. It has been an honor to cast this Major 1.
Yep, that's going to do it for myself, Jacob PR, and the life of the party, Panda himself. But let's throw it on over to Zeke and the gang to break down a momentous victory.
We have been highlighting Cold as a solo player, putting Acorn on his back, and now they can hold the axe of champions high as your NA East Major 1 champions. And my, oh my, I cannot think of another duo that is more deserving than this accolade.
I mean, come on now. Cold is the one that deserves to hold that axe of champions.
100%.
Cold will
What
hold
a
that.
performance. Exactly. I mean, I was literally blown away, at a loss for words to try to break down some of these solo clutches that Cold put on game after game after game, all 12 games. It seemed like it was just a Cold show.
I swear, it didn't matter what happened. As soon as Acorn went down, it's almost like a pop-up would appear on Cold's screen where it just says one thing: current objective, survive. And that is what he managed to do each and every single time. For anybody that might have missed it, I mean, even in the last game, the fact that he solo clutches 66 points, it's just so awesome to see him here with his first FNCS Finals Championship title name, and what a more deserving way to earn it.
I mean, he's on a tear right now, right? I mean, already the things being thrown around, the title, the best NA East player as it stands right now, and coming into that combined server next week is NA Central. I would be worried if I were some of these other competitors with this guy on the loose.
His box-to-box fighting, insane. Game sense, insane. Awareness, next level. Cold can do it all. And once again, just a massive congratulations to your new champions here in NA East. So
100%.
well deserved. I just don't know what else we could say. I mean, if you need it, if you feel like you're missing something, just go watch any of the games where Cold was left alive.
This is definitely the perfect way for them to book their ticket towards that global championship. And I'm really just excited to see. I mean, obviously, we're kind of anticipating this duo to stay together because they did such an awesome job together. Because Vivid, you called it. It might have gone crazy, and it went crazy for Agers and Kanata, the battle for second place.
There it is. Yamzo and Rise going out a little bit early that game. Agers, though, we're talking about solo clutches coming out of Cold. Agers surviving until that second place, picking up a couple more eliminations. 5-point difference makes a difference right there between $20,000, picking up 70 grand for Kanata and Agers. Huge for them.
Well, this is why we said, right, you cannot stop cheering on your favorite duo because it will all come down to this single game, those single moments, those single interactions. This is Fortnite. This is what global championships could look like. And this is just NA East. We become NA next major.
Yeah.
And then in global champions, we have 6 regions all being represented on a single stage.
Gosh. And we already know
I'm
one
about
of
to pass out.
One of those duos is going to be there. Acorn and Cold. We're talking up Cold so much right now, right? But we first saw Cold's breakout during Chapter 3, Season 3, teaming up with Scented, and those solo clutches were happening, but not as frequently, right? So we got to attribute some of that to Acorn, whether it be the work that Cold has been putting in with him, or maybe like it's a coach coming in. Whatever it is, Cold has put in some work this season, and I got to give a big shout out to Acorn, because when they were a duo, that victory round we sold 15 eliminations. I mean, they are just so clean.
Yeah, Cold's had me sold, though, ever since I saw him at the FNCS Invitational in particular with that highlight-worthy moment of the 1v2 solo clutch. Ever since that instance, I think we knew what he was capable of, but here we saw his full potential really rise to the occasion.
Absolutely.
Shout out to him.
Shout out to him. Honestly, yeah, Acorn Cold, once again, massive congratulations. But there's also champions in other regions to highlight who some of those might be. Let's send it back on over to Jacob PR and Panda.
This is it. we've claimed our NA East champion. You already talked about Acorn and Cold, but if you watched earlier on in the day, Tayson and Merstache talk about a photo finish. They completed it indeed.
That they did, but with West and Brazil not quite yet done, we'll find those champions here soon. But we got to give congratulations to Pipo and Zagu in Asia. What an incredible finish.
Yep, we got Suns and Anon over towards the Oceania region. And when it comes to Middle East, you got Twist and a Rapid. This is going to be huge because I remember making one of these videos on Rapid, and he does it yet again. But we talked about NA East. We talked about Brazil. Who do you got? I got Bolton Thor taking NA West.
You know what? That's a great pick. Obviously finishing top day 1, but we'll see who walks away with it. But this is your champions from Major 1 Grand Finals. I mean, what an incredible weekend it has been. Honestly, you guys are amazing.
What a day. I'm just shell shocked.
Reeling.
Like, I am just, not only was EU came down to a single point difference, and NA East also put on an amazing show. I don't want it to end.
Neither do I, honestly.
Let's run it back.
It was absolutely perfect the way both of these regions played out because you had EU, a photo finish, coming down not only to the last game, but the last couple of zones at that. And then an exciting over here on NA East with Cold just dominating. And I mean dominate. He didn't want to take part. He took over this FNCS. 2 different variations of excitement. I'm here for it.
Oh, I'm here for it too. Look, honestly, congratulations are due for Acorn and Cold. The flowers they deserve finally going in their direction. Acorn, obviously, an incredible established player, finally getting that top spot and going to the Global Championship.
Just think it's so cool that we actually got to see between EU and NA East for today, the fact that there were some newly established champions with their first ever title wins.
Yeah, I mean, looking at that list up there, Panda and Jacob broke down, right? Those are names that are solidified to go to the Global Championship. Those names have me that much more excited for the end of the year to be able to watch that competition unfold. But I mean, guys, whole new server next season, the new season. Oh my gosh, I'm just so excited. All the Fortnite action happening in such a short time span.
It's really not that far away. Major 2 will be here before you know it. But that's it from us here for Major number 1. We're going to miss y'all so much. But as always, thank you all of you who tuned in, who shared in these moments. Make sure you go follow these guys, Kelly, Link, all the EU cast. Find these players. Celebrate with them. They have achieved something incredible this weekend. As always, we love y'all. Keep yourself safe. And we'll see you on that battle bus.
Beep, beep.